to fucking shit itself fucking 2 minutes in. Fuck me, man. That's okay.
In
We,
people with
we
pre-existing
keep going.
conditions. As far as the say is concerned, the people already had their say. Okay, Justice Ginsburg said very powerfully, very strongly, at some point, 10 years ago or so, she said a president and the Senate is elected for a period of time, but a president's elected for 4 years. We're not elected for 3 years. I'm not elected for 3 years. So we have the Senate, we have a president.
He's elected to the next
during
election.
that period of time, we have an opening. I'm not elected for 3 years. I'm elected for 4 years. And the 100 million people, Joe, the 100 million people is totally wrong. I don't know where you got that number. The bigger problem that you have is that you're going to extinguish 180 million people with private health care that they're very
That's
happy with.
simply not true.
Well, you said you're going to socialist. You're going to socialist medicine.
We're now into, gentlemen, we're now into open discussion.
Open discussion.
Open discussion. Yes, I agree.
Let's hope the
Go ahead,
internet
Vice President.
Number one,
fucking stays
he knows
alive
that,
this time,
what
boys.
What I proposed is that we expand Obamacare and we increase it. We do not wipe any. And one of the big debates we had with 23 of my colleagues trying to win the nomination that I won, were saying that Biden wanted to allow people to have private insurance still. They can. They do. They will under my proposal.
It's not what you've said,
But
and it's not what your party has said.
That is simply
your party
a lie.
doesn't say it. Your party wants to go socialist medicine.
My party is
and
me.
socialist
right
healthcare.
now, I am
and
the
they're going to dominate
Party.
you, Joe. You know that.
I am the Democratic Party right now. The platform of the
Not according
Democratic
to
Party
Harris.
is what I, in fact, approved of. What I approved of. Now,
You
here's the deal.
can't defeat
The deal
me.
is that it's
I
going to
am the
wipe out the
DNC.
pre-existing conditions. And by the way, the 200 million, the 200,000 people that have died on his watch, how many of those have survived? Well, there's 7 million people that contracted COVID. What does it mean for them going forward if you strike down the Affordable Care Act?
Joe, you've had 308,000 military people dying because you couldn't provide them proper health care in the military. So don't tell me
I'm
about
happy
this.
to talk about
And
this.
if you were here,
Look,
it
here's
wouldn't
the
be
deal.
200. It would be 2 million people because you were very late on the draw. You
Late
didn't
on
want
the
me to
draw.
ban China, which was heavily infected. You didn't want me to ban
All right, gentlemen,
Europe, which
no,
was heavily
Mr. President,
infected. You would have been
Mr.
much
President,
later, Joe.
Mr. President,
much later.
Mr.
You're
President,
talking about 2 million people.
You're not gonna be able
President,
to
as
shut
a
him up.
moderator, we are going to talk about COVID in the next segment, but
Okay.
go ahead.
Let me finish. The point is that the president also is opposed to Roe v. Wade. That's on the ballot as well in the court. And so that's also at stake right now. And so the election is all
You don't know it's on the ballot. Why is it on the ballot?
Because
Why is
you
it on the
said
ballot? It's not on the ballot.
It's on the ballot in the
I
court.
don't think so.
In the court. Well,
There's nothing happening there.
Donald, would
And
you
you
just
don't
be quiet
know
for a
her
minute?
view on Roe v. Wade. You
I
don't
don't
know her
know.
view.
Well, all right, let's talk. We got a lot to unpack here, gentlemen. We got a lot of time. So, on health care, and then we'll come back to Roe v. Wade.
Okay.
All right.
She's
Mr.
getting
President, the
spicy already,
Supreme Court
boys.
will hear a case a week after the election in which the Trump administration, along with 18 state attorneys general, are seeking to overturn
That's right.
Obamacare, to end Obamacare. You have spent the last...
Because they want to give good health care.
If I may ask my question, sir.
Good health care.
Over the last 4 years, you have promised to repeal and replace Obamacare, but you have never in these 4 years come up with a plan, a comprehensive plan
Yes,
to
I have.
replace Obamacare.
Of course I have.
Well, I'll
I
give
got
you
rid of
an
the
opportunity.
individual
When I finish, I'm going to
mandate.
give you an
Excuse me.
opportunity.
I got rid of the individual mandate, which was a
That is
big
not a
chunk of
comprehensive
That
plan.
is absolutely a big thing. That was the
I
worst part of
didn't ask you,
Obamacare.
sir.
Chris,
You're
that was the
debating him,
worst
not
part of
me.
Obamacare.
Let me ask my
Well,
question.
I'll ask Joe. The individual mandate was the most unpopular aspect of
Mr.
Obamacare. I
President,
got rid of it.
I'd like
and
you
we
to-
will
Mr.
protect people
President,
with
I'm the
pre-existing
moderator of this
conditions.
debate, and I would like you to let me ask my question, and then you can answer.
Go
your
ahead.
question. You, in the course of these 4 years, have never come up with a comprehensive plan to replace Obamacare, and just this last Thursday, you signed a largely symbolic executive order to protect people with pre-existing conditions 5 days before this debate. So my question, sir, is what is the Trump health care plan?
Fine. Well, first of all, I guess I'm debating you, not him, but that's okay. I'm not surprised. Let me just tell you something. That there's nothing symbolic. I'm cutting drug prices. I'm going with favored nations, which no president has the courage to do because you're going against Big Pharma. Drug prices will be coming down 80 or 90%. You could have done it during your 47-year period in government, but you didn't do it. Nobody's done it. So we're cutting health care.
about
All of the
pre-existing
things that we've done,
He has not cut
insulin. I
healthcare.
give you an example. Insulin. It was destroying families, destroying people because I'm getting it for so cheap. It's like water, you want to know the truth. So cheap. Take a look at all of the drugs what we're doing, prescription drug prices. We're going to allow our governors now to go to other countries to buy drugs because
When in
they
fact-
pay just a tiny
As I
fraction.
say,
of
this
what
is
we do.
open discussion.
No,
Let
but
me
this
ask
is
you
big.
you'll
This
be
is
happy,
big stuff.
sir. You'll be happy. I'm about to pick up on one of your points to ask the vice president, which is he points out that you would like to add a public option to Obamacare. And
Yes.
the argument that he makes and other Republicans make is that that is going to end private insurance.
It is
and
not.
well, I can ask you the question. It will
Not what
end.
the party says, by the way.
It will end private insurance and create a government takeover of health care.
It does not. It's only for those people who are so poor they qualify for Medicaid. They can get that free in most states, except governors who want to deny people who are poor Medicaid. Anyone who qualifies for Medicaid would automatically be enrolled in the public option. The vast majority of the American people would still not be in that option. Number one.
Joe, you
Number
agreed
two.
with Bernie Sanders, who's far left, on the manifesto, we call it. And that gives you socialized medicine.
Look, hey,
Are you
I'm
saying
not
you
going to
didn't
listen
agree?
to him. The fact of the matter is, I beat Bernie Sanders.
Not by much.
I beat him a whole hell of a lot. I'm
Not
here
much.
standing facing you, old buddy.
Pocahontas would have left
Well,
2 days
I tell
early.
you,
You would have lost every primary.
All he knows how to
on
do
Super
is hurt.
Tuesday. You got
Look,
very lucky.
here's the deal. I got very lucky. I'm going to get very lucky tonight as well. And tonight I'm going to
With
make
what?
sure, because
With what?
here's the deal. Here's the deal. The fact is that everything he's saying so far is simply a lie. I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
But you
I just
agree.
want to
Hey,
make
you're
sure.
the liar.
I want to make sure.
Graduated last in your class, not first in your class.
I want to make
Mr.
sure.
President, can you let him finish, sir?
No, he doesn't know how to do that. He has,
You'd be
you know,
surprised.
you pick
Be surprised.
the
Go ahead,
wrong
Joe.
guy, the wrong night at the
No.
wrong time.
Listen, you agreed with
Here's-
Oh,
Sanders to the
oh,
manifesto.
come on, Joel. Fist
There
fight.
is
Come
no
on.
manifesto, number
Please
one.
let him speak, Mr.
Number
President.
two.
You just lost the left.
Number two.
You just lost the left. You agreed with Bernie Sanders on a plan
Folks,
that's absolutely agreed
folks, do you
to,
have
and
any
under that
idea
plan,
what
you have
this clown's
socialized,
doing?
They call it
Mr.
Medicare.
Do you
Mr.
have any
President.
do?
Socialized medicine.
Mr.
Well,
President,
I tell you what, he is not for any help for people needing health care
Bernie?
because he in fact already has cost 10 million people their health care that they had from their employers because of his recession. Number one. Number two,
yeah.
there are 20 million people getting health care through Obamacare now
Oh,
that he wants
he brought
to
up
take
the
it
plague.
away.
Here comes
He
China.
won't ever look you in the eye and say that's what he wants to
China.
do.
There
Take
we
it away.
No, I want to give
Number
them better
three.
health care at a much lower price
But-
because
and by the way,
Obamacare
he
is
doesn't know
no
how.
good.
He doesn't know how
I've
to do
already
that.
fixed it.
He has never
I've
offered
already
a plan.
fixed it to an extent.
He has never
Obamacare,
done a
as you
single
might
thing.
know, but probably don't.
gentlemen, you
Obamacare
realize
is no
if you're
good,
both
Joe.
speaking at the
It's
same
no good,
time,
and it's too expensive.
let the president go ahead, sir.
Obamacare is no good. We made it better. And I had a choice to make very early on. We took away the individual mandate. We guarantee pre-existing conditions, but took away the individual mandate. Listen, this is the way it is. And that destroyed, that they shouldn't even call it Obamacare. Then I had a choice to make. Do I let my people run it really well or badly? If I run it badly, they'll probably blame him, but they'll blame me. But more importantly, I want to help people, okay? I said, you got to run it so well.
That's what he's
And I
known for.
just had a meeting with them. They said the problem is no matter how well you run Obamacare, it's a disaster. It's too expensive.
I got you.
Premiums
I
are
got
too
it.
high, and
That's
it
what his
doesn't work.
peop- that's what
So
his people
we
say.
do want to get
No.
rid of it.
It's
Chris,
an
we
open
want to get rid of it.
I
and
understand
give
it, sir, but
something
I have
that's
to
cheaper
give
and
you
better.
roughly equal time.
Good.
Please let the vice president talk.
Good.
He has no plan for health care. Of
course we do.
Please.
He sends out wishful thinking. He has executive orders that have no power. He hasn't lowered drug costs for anybody. He's been promising a health care plan since he got elected. He has none, like almost everything else he talks about. He does not have a plan. He doesn't have a plan. And the fact is, this man doesn't know what he's talking about.
All right.
He's
I have one final question for you,
Sure.
Mr. Vice President. If Senate Republicans, we were talking originally about the Supreme Court here, if Senate Republicans go ahead and confirm Justice Barrett, there has been talk about ending the filibuster or even packing the court, adding to the 9 justices there. You call this a distraction by the president, but in fact it wasn't brought up by the president. It was brought up by some of your Democratic colleagues in the Congress. So my question to you is, you have refused in the past to talk about it. Are you willing to tell the American people tonight whether or not you will support either ending the filibuster or packing the court?
Whatever position I take on that, that'll become the issue. The issue is the American people should speak. You should go out and vote. You're in voting now. Vote and let your senators know how
you gonna
strongly
pack
you
the
feel. Vote now.
gonna pack the
Make
court?
sure you, in fact, let people know
He doesn't wanna
you're a
answer the
senator.
question.
I'm not going to answer the question
Why
because
wouldn't you answer that
because
question?
the
You wanna
question
put a
is
lot of
the
new
question
Supreme Court
is
justices,
the
radical
question,
left.
Will you
Who
shut
is
up,
on,
man?
Listen, who is on your list, Joe?
Pissing
This
them
is
off.
on your
so
list?
Right, gentlemen, I think
This
we've
is
ended
so
this.
He's going to pack
unprecedented.
the court.
We have
We're
ended,
not going to give a list.
we have ended
Oh,
this segment.
Biden.
We're going to move on to
Biden's
the second
getting-
segment.
That was really a productive
Wow,
segment.
Biden's actually getting a bit
Keep yapping, man.
The people
spicy.
understand, Joe.
They sure do.
47 years you've
Yeah.
done nothing. They understand.
All right.
Woo!
The second subject is COVID-19.
How long we
It's
got
a
left
awfully
of
serious
this?
subject, so
Like
let's
40
try
minutes.
to be serious about it. We have had more than 7 million cases of coronavirus in the United States, and more than 200,000 people have died. Even after we produce a vaccine, experts say
Over
that it
80
could be
in care
months
homes.
or even years
Thank Cuomo for some
before
of
we
it.
come
Like
back
20K.
to anything
Yeah.
approaching normal. My question for both of you is, based on what you have said and done so far, and what you have said you would do starting in 2021, why should the American people trust you more than your opponent to deal with this public health crisis going forward? In this case, the question goes to you first, sir. 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Good luck. 200,000 dead. As you said, over 7 million infected in the United States. We, in fact, have 5%, 4% of the world's population, 20% of the deaths. 40,000 people a day are contracting COVID. In addition to that, about
but your
between
deaths are
750
with,
and 1,000 people a day are
because.
dying. When he was presented with that number, he said, it is what it is. Well,
It is what it
because
is.
you are who you are. That's why it is. The president has no plan. He hasn't laid out anything. He knew all the way back in February how serious this crisis was. He knew it was a deadly disease. What did he do? He's on tape as acknowledging he knew it. He said he didn't tell us or give people a warning of it because he didn't want to panic the American people. You don't panic. He panicked. In addition to that, what did he do? He went in and we were insisting that the Chinese, the people we had on the ground in China should be able to go to Wuhan and determine for themselves how dangerous this was. He did not even ask Xi to do that. He told us what a great job Xi was doing. He said we owe him a debt of gratitude for being so
Let's have some more dramatic
transparent with
music
us.
going on.
And what did he do then? He then did nothing. He waited and waited and waited. He still doesn't have a plan.
Wrong.
I laid out
Sir,
back
it's
in
his 2
March
minutes.
exactly
it's so
what we
wrong.
should be doing. And I laid out again in July what we should be doing. We should be providing all the protective gear possible. We should be providing the money the House has passed in order to be able to go out and get people the help they need to keep their businesses open schools. It costs a lot of money. You should get out of your bunker and get out of the sand trap and get in your golf course and go in the Oval Office and bring together the Democrats and Republicans and fund what needs to be done now to save lives.
So if
Wait,
we would have listened to
You have 2 minutes, sir.
if we would have listened to you, the country would have been left wide open. Millions of people would have died, not 200,000. And one person is too much. It's China's fault. It should have never happened. They stopped it from going in,
China.
but it was China's fault. And by the way, when you talk about numbers, you don't know how many people died in China. You don't know how many people died in Russia. You don't know how many people died in India. They don't exactly give you a straight count, just so you understand. But if you look at what we've done, I closed it, and you said he's xenophobic. He's a racist, and he's xenophobic because you didn't think I should
unrelated
have
to
closed
your
our country.
COVID.
No,
Wait a
sir,
minute.
It's his 2 minutes.
You didn't think we should have closed our country because you thought it was terrible. You wouldn't have closed it for another 2 months. By my doing it early, in fact, Dr. Fauci said President Trump saved thousands of lives. Many of your Democrat governors said President Trump did a phenomenal job. We worked with the governor. Oh, really? Go take a look. The governors said I did a phenomenal job. Most of them said that. In fact, people that would not be necessarily on my side said that. President Trump did a phenomenal job. We did. We got the gowns. We got the masks. We made the ventilators. You wouldn't have made ventilators. And now we're weeks away from a vaccine. We're doing therapeutics already. Fewer people are dying when they get sick. Far fewer people are dying. We've done a great job. The only thing I haven't done a good job, and that's because of the fake news. No matter what you say to them, they give you bad press on it. It's just fake news. They give you good press. They give me bad press because that's the way it is, unfortunately. But let me just tell you something. I don't care. I've gotten used to it. But I'll tell you, Joe, you could never have done the job that we did. You don't have it in your blood. You could have never done that job.
I know how to do the job. I know how to get the job
Well, you didn't do
done.
very well in swine flu. H1N1, you were a disaster. Your own chief of staff said you were a disaster.
14,000 people died, not 200,000. There was
A
no
very-
economic recession.
Sir, you made a
There was-
far
there
less
was no
lethal
recession.
disease,
you made
by
a
the way.
point. Let him answer.
And there was we didn't shut down the economy. This is his economy he's shut down. The reason it's shut down is because, look, you folks at home, how many of you got up this morning and had an empty chair at the kitchen table because someone died of COVID? How many of you were in a situation where you lost your mom or dad and you couldn't even speak to them? You had a nurse holding a phone up so you could, in fact, say goodbye.
You would have lost far
How
more
many
people.
people?
Far
That is-
more people.
And,
You would have been
and by the way,
months late.
your own,
You were
his
months behind me,
his
Joe.
own CDC director says we could lose as many as another 200,000 people between now and the end of the year. And he said, if we just wear a mask, we can save half those numbers. Just a mask. And by the way, in terms of the whole notion of a vaccine,
that's not how masks
we're
work.
for a vaccine, but I don't trust him at all, nor do you. I know you don't. What we trust is a scientist.
You don't
we
trust
Dr.
Johnson
Fauci.
& Johnson, Pfizer?
And
Okay.
by the way,
Masks only
gentlemen, let
help
me move on
10%
to
of virus
questions
stoppage.
about the future, because you both have
used
touched on two of the questions I'm going to ask.
i.e.
Focusing
trained
on the future
professional.
first, President Trump,
Normal
you have
people.
repeatedly either
don't
contradicted
help.
or
They
been
don't
at
help.
odds with some of your government's own top scientists. The week before
Well, it is
last,
what it is. It's
the
better
head
than
of
nothing, I
the
suppose.
Centers
What
for
else are we
Disease
gonna do?
Control, Dr. Redfield, said it would be summer before the vaccine would become generally available to the public. You said that he was confused and mistaken. Those were your two words.
Yeah.
But Dr. Slaoui, the head of your Operation Warp Speed, has said exactly the same thing. Are they both wrong?
Well, I've spoken to the companies, and we can have it a lot sooner. It's a very political thing because people like this would rather make it political than save lives. It is a very political thing. I've spoken to Pfizer. I've spoken to all of the people that you have to speak to. We have great Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and others. They can go faster than that by a lot. Become very political because the left, or I don't know if I call
So
them
you're
left, I don't know
suggesting
what I
that
call
the
them.
head of your Operation Warp Speed, Dr. Slaoui?
I disagree with him. Yeah, no, I disagree with both of them. And he didn't say that. He said it could be there, but it could also be much sooner. I had him in my office 2 days ago.
He talked about the summer, sir, before it's generally available, just like
He
Dr.
said it's a
Redfield.
possibility that we'll have the answer before November 1st. It could also
I'm
be
talking
after
about when it's
that.
generally available. not when it
Well,
will
we're
be.
going to deliver it right away. We have the military all set up. Logistically, they're all set up. We have our military that delivers soldiers, and they can do 200,000 a day. They're going to be
this is
delivering
the
the
same
vaccine.
man
It's
who
all
told
set
you
up.
by Easter this would be gone away. By the warm weather, it'd be gone. Miraculous, like a miracle. And by the way, maybe you could inject some bleach in your arm, and that would take care of it. This is the same man.
Said sarcastically.
That was
you
him.
know that. That was said sarcastically.
And so here's the deal. This man is talking about a vaccine. Every serious company is talking about
TikTok
maybe
bleach
having a
shining. Here we
vaccine
go, boys.
done by the end of the year. But the distribution of that vaccine will not occur until sometime beginning or the middle of next year to get it out, if we get the vaccine. And pray God we will. Pray God we will.
Mr. Vice President, I want to pick up, though.
You'll have
on
the
that.
vaccine
I
sooner
want to
than
pick
that.
up on this question, though. You say the public can trust the scientists, but they can't trust President Trump. In fact, you said that again tonight. Your running mate, Senator Harris, goes further, saying the public health experts, quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed. Given the fact that polls already show that people are concerned about the vaccine and are reluctant to take it, are you and your running mate, Senator Harris, contributing to that fear?
No more than the question you just asked him. You pointed out. He puts pressure and disagrees with his own scientists.
But you're saying
Everybody
you can't, or
knows.
Senator
And-
Harris is saying you
no,
can't trust the scientists.
No. You can trust the scientists. She didn't say that. You can't trust
She said the public health
Did say
experts,
that.
quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed.
Well, that's what he's going to try to do. But there's millions of scientists, there's thousands of scientists out there, like here at this great hospital, that don't work for him. Their job doesn't depend on him. That's not. They're the people. And by
I
the way,
spoke to the
and Fauci,
scientists that are in
and
charge.
by the way,
they will have
and
the vaccine very soon.
Let him finish.
do you believe for a moment what he's telling you in light of all the lies he's told you about the whole issue relating to COVID? He still hasn't even acknowledged that he knew this was happening, knew how dangerous it was going to be back in February, and he didn't even tell you. He's on record as saying it. He panicked or he just looked at the stock market, one of the two, because guess what? a lot of people died. And a lot more are going to die unless he gets a lot smarter, a lot quicker.
So-
Mr. President?
Did you use the word smart? So you said you went to Delaware State, but you forgot the name of your college. You didn't go to Delaware State. You graduated either the lowest or almost the lowest in your class. Don't ever use the word smart with me. Don't ever use that word.
Oh, give
Ooh.
me
Because you know what?
Ooh.
There's nothing smart about you, Joe. 47 years you've done nothing.
Let's have this debate.
And if
We'll
you
see
would have
this.
had, let me just tell you something, Joe.
No,
If you would have had the charge of what I was put through, I had to close the greatest economy in the history of our country. And by the way, now it's being built again.
See,
and
he's
it's
We're going to
going
get
up
to the
fast.
economy in the next segment, sir.
okay.
It's going up fast.
Okay.
Look forward to
When
talking.
When it comes to how the virus has been handled so far, the two of you have taken very different approaches, and this is going to affect how the virus is handled going forward by whichever of you ends up becoming the next president. I want to quickly go through several of those. Reopenings. Vice President Biden, you have been much more reluctant than President Trump about reopening the economy and schools. Why, sir?
Because he doesn't have a plan. If I were running, I know what the plan is. You've got to provide these businesses the ability to have the money to be able to reopen with the
Okay,
PPE,
what is your plan?
as well as with the sanitation they need.
You need a
have to
plan.
provide
What
the
is your plan?
Nancy
plastic
Pelosi.
Well, he's just shush for a minute.
Tell it to
The-
Nancy
the-
Pelosi. And Schumer,
by the
Brian
way,
Chuck.
Nancy Pelosi and Schumer, they have a plan. He won't even meet with them. The Republicans won't meet with
Okay.
the Senate.
Let-
And he sits in his golf course. And, I mean,
Nah.
literally,
Okay.
think about it.
You probably
All right,
play
think
more than
about
I
it.
do, Joe.
What about this question of reopenings and the fact
Well, he wants to shut down this country,
Oh,
and I want to keep it open. And we
You
did
ju-
a
he
great thing
just
by
admitted
shutting
he
it
shut
down.
it down.
Wait a minute,
Let
Joe.
him
Let me
finish,
shut
sir.
you down for a second, Joe, just for 1 second. He wants to shut down the country. We just went through it. We had to because we didn't know anything about the disease. Now we found that elderly people with heart problems and diabetes and different problems are very, very vulnerable. We learned a lot. Young children aren't. Even younger people aren't. We've learned a lot. But he wants to shut it down. More people will be hurt by continuing. If you look at Pennsylvania, if you look at certain states that have been shut down, they have Democrat governors all. One of the reasons they're shut down is because they want to keep it shut down until after the election
All right,
on
Yeah.
November
I want to
3rd.
move on to another
Because
subject.
it's a
I want to move
political
on to
thing.
another
I
subject.
gotta
But
respond
those,
to that.
I
but
wanna
those
move-
states,
gentlemen, I
those
wanna move
states
on to
are
another
not
subject.
doing well that are shut down
which is
right
gotta
now.
respond to that.
Wants to
President
shut
Trump,
down the
you
whole
have
country.
begun to increasingly question the effectiveness of masks as a disease preventer. And in fact, recently you have cited the issue of waiters touching their masks and touching plates. Are you questioning
No, I think
the
masks
efficacy
are
of
okay.
of
You have to
masks?
understand, if you look, I mean, I have a mask right here. I put a mask on, when I think I need it. Tonight, as an example, everybody's had a test, and you've had social distancing and all of the things that you have to. But I
Just
wear
like your
masks
rallies.
when needed. When needed, I wear masks.
Okay, let me ask.
I don't wear masks like him. Every time you see him, he's got a mask. He could be speaking 200 feet away from it. He shows up with the biggest mask I've ever seen. I will say
Vice
this.
President Biden, go ahead, sir.
Look, the way to open businesses is give them the wherewithal to be able to open. We provided money. The Congress.
But I was asking you, sir, about masks.
Well, masks make a big difference. His own head of the CDC said if we just wore masks between now, everybody wore masks in social distance between now and January, we'd probably save up to 100,000 lives. It matters.
And they've also
It
said the
matters.
opposite. They've
And
also said
no serious person said the opposite.
They've
No
also said, well, look
serious
all right, I
at
wanna
Dr.
ask you-
Fauci. Dr. Fauci said the
He
opposite.
did
I
not
want
say
to
the
ask you, we
opposite.
got a
said
little
very
bit more than a
strongly,
minute left in this
masks
segment.
are not good. Then he changed his mind. He said masks.
Yeah.
I
I'm
wanna
okay
ask-
with masks.
I
I'm
want to
not
ask you
fighting
The
about
against
WHO,
one last
the
subject
CDC,
because
Fauci,
your
they all
different
said masks
approaches
were
has even
bad.
affected the way that you have
Then they
campaigned.
switched like
President
5
Trump, you're
months ago,
holding
and they're
large
like, oh, masks are
rallies
good.
with crowds packed together, thousands of people.
outside.
Outside, yes, sir, agreed. Vice President Biden, you are holding much smaller events
Because
with
nobody will show up.
people with.
What's
Wait.
true? Nobody shows up to his rallies.
All right. In any case, why you holding the big rallies? Why you not? You goes first, sir.
Because people want to hear what I have to say. I mean,
But are you
I've
not
done a
worried
great
about it
job
spreading
as a
disease?
president, and I'll have 35,000 people
Sure.
show up at airports. We use airports.
Are you
and
not worried
hangars,
about
and we
the
have a
disease
lot of
issues,
people.
sir?
Well, so far we have had no problem whatsoever. It's outside. That's a big difference, according to the experts. So we do them outside. We have tremendous crowds, as you see. I mean, every and literally on 24 hours notice. And Joe does the circles and has 3 people someplace.
Okay.
By the way, did you see
sir.
one of the last big rallies he had? And a reporter came up to him to ask him a question. He said, no, stand back. All right, put on your mask. Put on a mask. Have you been tested? I'm way far away from those other people. That's what he said. I can't. I'm going to be okay. He's not worried about you. He's not worried about the people out there breathing in one another.
We've had no negative
cheek to
effect.
jowl. No negative effect.
We've had no negative effect. And we've had 35, 40,000
All right,
people
you wanna
at these rallies.
Just
Yes.
quickly finish up
If
because I
you're
want to move on to
complaining
our
about
Yes, I
Trump
would.
giving
He's been
out about
totally
masks, you
irresponsible
can't
the way in which he
use
has
Trump
handled
complaining that
the
our
social
poor isn't wearing
distancing,
a mask.
the people wearing masks, basically
As a-
encourage them not to.
You
And
can,
he's
right?
a fool on this.
If you
It's
could
fucking
get the crowd,
ridiculous.
you would have done the same thing. But you can't. Nobody cares.
Gentlemen, can we move on to the
Nobody cares.
gentlemen? Can we move on to the economy?
Yes.
Economy.
The
let's
economy
go.
is, I think it's fair to say, recovering faster than expected from the shutdown
Much
this-
faster.
in the second quarter. The unemployment rate fell to 8.4% last month. The Federal Reserve says the hit to growth, which is going to be there, is not going to be nearly as big as they had expected. President Trump, you say we are in a V-shaped recovery. Vice President Biden, you say it's more of a K-shape. What difference does that mean to the American people in terms of the economy? President Trump, in this segment, you go first.
Isn't
So
it
we
V
built the
just like a
greatest
sideways
economy in
K?
history. We closed it down because of the China plague. When the plague came in, we closed it down, which was very hard psychologically to do. He didn't think we should close it down, and he was wrong. And again, 2 million people would be dead now instead of still 204,000 people is too much. One person is too much. Should have never happened from China. But what happened is we closed it down, and now we're reopening, and we're doing record business. We had 10.4 million people in a 4-month period that we've put back into the workforce. That's a record the likes of which nobody's ever seen before. And he wants to close down he
That's
will
a lot
shut
of
it
jobs,
down
yeah.
again. He will destroy this country. You know, a lot of people, between drugs and alcohol and depression, when you start shutting it down, you take a look at what's happening at some of your Democrat-run states where they have these tough shutdowns. And I'm telling you, it's because they don't want to open it. One of them came out last week. You saw that. Oh, we're going to open up on November 9th. Why November 9th? Because it's after the election. They think they're hurting us by keeping them closed. They're hurting people. People know what to do. They can social distance. They can wash their hands. They can wear masks. They can do whatever they want. But they got to open these states up. When you look at North Carolina, when you look, and these governors are under siege, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and a couple of others, you got to open these states up. It's not fair. You're talking about almost, it's like being in prison. And you look at what's going on with divorce, look at what's going on with alcoholism and drugs. It's a very, very sad thing. And he'll close down the whole country. This guy will close down the whole country and destroy our country. Our country is coming back incredibly well, setting records as it does it. We don't need somebody to come in and say, let's shut it down.
All right, your 2 minutes, sir. We're now moved to you. As I said, posing the question, the president
Yeah,
says
if you
it's a
shut down
V-shaped
again, then
recovery.
we're
You say
wrong.
it's a
The fucking Great
K-shaped
Depression.
recovery. What's the
Well,
difference?
my
The
country's
difference
fucked,
is
but, you know,
millionaires and billionaires
we can
like
look across
him
the wall.
in the middle of the COVID crisis have done very well.
We can look.
Billionaires have made another
Can't touch,
$300
but we can
billion
look.
because of his profligate tax proposal, and he only focused on the market. But you folks at home, you folks living in Scranton and Claymont and all the small towns and working class towns in America, how well are you doing? This guy paid
Well.
a total of $750 in
Wrong.
taxes.
Sir,
Any
sir,
millions.
wait, no, sir, it's
It's
his
the wrong
Yeah,
statement.
I
Oh
understand.
my
You've
God,
agreed to
don't
the
bring
2
up his
minutes, so please
taxes.
let him have it.
Do I get my time back?
There's a reason
The
you're a
fact is that
billionaire because
he is,
tax
in
has
fact, worked
loopholes,
on
and
this
if
in
you
a
like
way
give
that
to
he's gonna be
charity,
the
it
first
cuts you
president of the United
in half or
States
something. Blah, blah.
to leave office having fewer
You could cheat the
jobs
system if you
in
make
his
enough money.
administration than when he became president.
Just hire an
Fewer
accountant. You could
jobs
cheat the
than when he
system.
became president. First one in American
Technically.
history. Secondly, the people who have lost their jobs are those people who have been on the front lines, those people who have been saving our lives, those people who have been out there dying, people who've been putting themselves in the way to make sure that we could all try to make it. And the idea that he is insisting that we go forward and open when you have almost half the states in America with a significant increase in COVID deaths and COVID cases.
Can
in
you
the
say
United
that
States of
though?
America.
Can you
And he
say
wants
that
to open it up more. Why does he
the
want to
nurses
open
and the
it up? Why
medical
doesn't he take care of the
industry
American? You
is
can't
good
fix
when
the economy
it's just like a week
until
after
you
you call
fix
the
the
entire
COVID
fucking
crisis.
U.S.
And he
military
has no
stupid
intention
bastards?
of doing anything about making it better for you
It's
all
such-
at
it's
home in terms of
bad
your health and your
fucking-
safety. Schools. Why aren't schools open? Because it costs a lot of money to open them safely. You know, they were going to give, his administration was going to give the teachers and school students masks. And then they decided, no,
kids are
couldn't
the
do that
least
because
risk.
it's not a national emergency. Not a national emergency. They've done nothing to help small businesses. Nothing. They're closing. 1 in 6 is now
education
gone.
and socializing
He ought
is
to
more
get
important than
on the job
the
and take care of the needs of the American
0.0001
people
death
so we can open safely.
All right, your time is up, sir. We are going to get to.
I
we're
have
gonna,
to respond to that.
Well, you both had 2 minutes, sir.
Excuse me, he made a statement.
So did you.
People want their schools, no, people want their schools open. They don't want to be shut down. They don't want their state shut down. They want their restaurants. I look at New York. It's so sad what's happening in New York. It's almost like a ghost town. And I'm not sure it can ever recover what they've done in New York. People want their places open. They want to get back to their lives.
People
They'll
want
be
to be
careful,
safe.
but they want their schools open.
People want
I'm
to
the
be
one that
safe.
brought back football. By the way, I brought back Big Ten football. It was me, and I'm very happy to do it. And
All right,
people of Ohio are very proud of me. And you know
We're
how
going
I
to get
found
back.
out? When he took
Gentlemen,
a phony
we're going to
ad.
get to your economic
Freedom,
plans
freedom
going
trumps
forward in a
security.
moment. But first, Mr. President, as you well know, there's a new
gotta be for
report
freedom
that
over
in
security, 'cause if you're for
2016, the
security
year
over
you were
freedom,
elected
then
president, and 2017,
you went up in
your
Nazi
first
Germany.
year
It's
as
not so
president,
good.
that you paid $750 a year in federal income tax each of those years. I know that you pay a lot of other taxes, but I'm asking you the specific question. Is it true that you paid $750 in federal income taxes each of those 2 years?
I paid millions of dollars in taxes, millions of dollars
Oh, let's
of
just be
income
real,
tax.
guys.
And let
The
me just tell
taxman
you,
got Al
there was a
Capone.
story in one
If
of the
Trump
papers.
Show us your
didn't
I
pay
paid
tax,
$38 million
he would have
one
been
year.
fucking
I
locked
paid
up.
$27
and
million
Show us your
one
tax
year.
return.
years ago.
I went. You'll see it as soon as it's finished. You'll see it.
Would
you know
he
what I
not?
want to do? Go to the Board
The
of
tax people
Elections.
just not having
There's a
confidence?
118-page or
I
so
fucking doubt
report
it.
that says everything I have, every bank I have, I'm totally under leveraged because the assets are extremely good, and we have a very I built
Sir,
a great
I'm asking
company.
you a specific question, which
But
is.
let me tell you.
I understand all of that.
Release your
I
tax
understand
return.
all of
But-
that.
but let me-
No, Mr. President.
Go ahead.
I'm asking you a question. Will you tell us how much you paid in federal income taxes in 2016 and 2017?
Millions of dollars.
You paid millions of dollars?
Millions of dollars.
So
yes.
not 700.
Millions of dollars, and you'll get to see it.
I-
And you'll get to
When?
see it. But let me just
Inshallah?
tell you, Chris, let me just tell you something, that it was the tax laws. I don't want to pay tax. Before I came here, I was a private developer. I was a private business people. Like every other private person, unless they're stupid, they go through the laws, and that's what it is. He passed a tax bill that gave us all these privileges for depreciation and for tax credits. We build a building and we get tax credits, like the hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue. You get a
Okay.
massive, which, by the way, was given to me by the Obama administration, if you can believe that. Now, the man got
Oh.
fired
No,
right after that happened, but
Vice
that's
Well, then
President
again,
Biden,
wasn't
you
that
wanna
during
respond?
Yeah, I do
a
want to
thing? So that would make sense.
Look, the tax code
So-
that made him
Yeah,
put him in
Obama
a
doing a
position
good
that he
thing.
pays less tax than
Let
a school
Trump doing a
teacher
good
make-
thing.
on the money a school teacher
Now the
makes
good thing is
is
back.
because of him. He
2020.
says he's smart because he can take advantage of the tax code, and he does take advantage of the tax code. That's why I'm going to eliminate the Trump tax cuts, and
Good.
I'm going to eliminate those tax
Okay.
cuts.
If
and
you
make
elect
sure
me,
that
we'll
we
raise
invest
your
in the
taxes
people
by
who, in
10%.
fact, need
That's
the help.
not a good thing to
People
run on.
out there need help.
But why didn't you
Ask
do it
him-
over the
No,
last
wait,
25
no,
years?
Because
I
you
wanna-
weren't
Why didn't
president.
you do it over
Because
the
you
last
weren't
25
president
years? No,
screwing
no,
things
no.
up.
You were a senator. And
You're
by
the
way,
worst
you were a
president
vice-
America has ever had.
Hey,
Come
Joe,
on.
let me just tell you, Joe. I've done more in 47 months. I've done more than you've done in 47 years, Joe. We've done things that you never even thought of doing,
Okay,
including
gentlemen.
fixing the broken military that you gave me,
Let's-
including taking care of
We're
your
talking,
vets.
Mr. President, we're talking about the economy. I'd like to ask you about your plans going forward, because, Mr. Vice President, your economic plan, if you were to be
Yes,
elected
ma'am.
president, focuses a lot on big government, big taxes, big spending. I want to focus first on the taxes.
Big
you
government is
propose
bad,
more
boys.
than $4 trillion over a decade in new taxes
It doesn't
on
get any.
individuals
doesn't.
making more than
It just
$400,000 a
doesn't.
year and on corporations. President Trump says
They
that
just
that
turn into
kind
a
of
bunch
an
of fucking
increase in
morons,
taxes
and they don't
is
do
going to hurt the economy as it's just coming out of a
My
recession.
government takes
Well,
3
just
months
take a
off.
look at what
6 months after an election,
the
they're still
analysis
not
done
elected.
by
Right?
Wall Street firms points
Big
out
government.
that my
Great.
economic plan would create 7 million more jobs than his in 4 years, number one. And number two, it would create an additional $1 trillion in economic growth because it would be about buying American. That we're going to make this federal government spend $600 billion a year on everything from ships to steel to buildings and the like.
Okay, but if you make
And
1
under my
trillion,
proposal,
but you
we're
spend
going to make
13
sure that
trillion,
every
that's
penny of that
still
has
minus
to be
12.
made by a company
But
in
respectfully,
America.
sir, I'm talking about taxes, not spending.
By the way, I'm going to eliminate a significant number of the tax. I'm going to make the corporate tax 28%. It shouldn't be 21%. You have
Ooh,
91 companies, in the Fortune 500,
There's a
who
reason
don't pay a
everyone
single
left
penny in
America,
tax, making
because the taxes
billions
got
of
too high.
dollars.
Why didn't you do it
Billions
before
of
when
dollars.
you were vice president with Obama?
Because you, in fact, passed that. That was
That's right.
your
I got
tax
it.
proposal.
I got it done. And you know what
Yeah,
happened?
you got it done.
Our economy boomed
And
like
the-
it's never
and
boomed.
the economy is
Mr.
busted.
President,
Let me
wait, no,
finish.
Mr. President, let me pick up on
It's like
that.
a weird
You
paradox. You
would
reduce
continue
taxes, you
your
get
free
more
market
money.
approach, lower taxes, more
Because there's more
deregulation, correct?
Not lower tax for the American people.
And then you have less
but
deficit
in
because,
Obama's,
you
you
don't
talk
have
about
to
the
pay for
economy
social
booming.
welfare.
It turns
People
out that
actually
in
have jobs.
Obama's final 3 years as president, more jobs were created,
Not
a million
always,
and a
but
half more
it's
jobs
interesting how it works.
than in the first 3 years of your presidency.
They had the slowest recovery since economic recovery since 1929. It was the slowest recovery. Also, they took over something that was down here. All you had to do is turn on the lights and you pick up a lot. But they had the slowest economic recovery since 1929. Let me tell you about the stock market. When the stock market goes up, that means jobs. It also means 401ks. If you got in, if you ever became president with your ideas, you want to terminate my taxes, I'll tell you what, you'll lose half of the companies that have poured in here will leave, and plenty
Half
of
of the
companies that are
companies,
already here, they'll leave for
hardly any
other
companies
places.
have
They will
poured in
leave,
here.
and you will have a
Have it.
depression, the likes of which you've never seen.
Look,
Mr.
we
Vice President.
inherited
Yeah, in the midst of a
the
recession.
worst recession short of a depression in
fucking-
American history. I was asked to bring it back. We were able to have an economic recovery that created the jobs you're talking about. We handed him a booming economy. He blew it.
It wasn't
He blew
booming.
it. He
It
blew it.
wasn't booming.
It was a-
it was the weakest recovery
Well, sir, is it
since
fair to, wait,
1929.
is it fair to say he blew it when, in
When
fact,
COVID came in.
when there was record low unemployment
Yeah.
before COVID?
Yeah, but because what he did, even before COVID, manufacturing went in the hole. Manufacturing went in the hole.
Excuse
number
me,
one.
Chris.
Did it?
Wait,
Number two.
Chris,
Number three.
they said it would take.
No, they
you're
opened
number
like
two.
another,
No.
like,
Chris,
what, 40
they
plants or
said
something?
it would
This
take
guy-
a miracle to bring back manufacturing. I brought back 700,000 jobs. They brought back nothing. They gave up on manufacturing.
We
Part
did
of
not
my
agree with that.
standard fare.
I'm the guy that
He
brought
totally
back
gave
the
up on
automobile industry.
manufacturing.
All right, let him.
We brought back, I was asked to bring back Chrysler and General Motors. We brought them back right here in the state of Ohio and Michigan. He blew it. They're gone. He blew it. And in fact, they're going.
Ohio had the best year it's ever had last year. Michigan had the best year they've ever had.
That is not
Many
true.
car companies
No,
came in from Germany, from
not-
Japan,
no,
went to Michigan,
no,
went to
they're
Ohio.
not having
And
that.
they didn't come in with you.
Mr. Vice President, go ahead.
And so you take a look at what he's actually done. He's done very little. His trade deals are the same way. He talks about these great trade deals. You know, he talks about the art of the deal. China's perfected the art of the steal. We have a higher deficit with China now than we did before. We have the highest trade deficit
China
with
ate
Mexico.
your
calling them
lunch.
China, Joe?
100%. China ate your lunch, Joe, and no
but-
wonder your son goes in and he takes out billions of dollars, to manage. He makes millions of dollars, and also
Simply
while we're
not
at it,
true.
why is
Simply
it? Just out of curiosity. The mayor of Moscow's wife gave your son $3.5 million.
That's
What
not
did he
true.
do to deserve it?
That
What
is
did he do with Burisma
none
to
of that
deserve
is true.
$183,000?
None
You've
of
asked
that
your
is
question,
true.
let him answer.
None of that is true.
Oh,
It's
really? He didn't
totally,
get
But no,
$3.5
hey,
million?
Mr. President,
It's
Mr.
totally-
President, please. You've
totally
asked a question.
discredited. Totally discredited. And by the way,
Well, wait, he
let's
didn't
talk-
get
No, no.
$3.5 million, Joe?
Mr. Vice,
He got
Mr.
$3.5 million.
President,
that is not true.
Oh,
Here's-
really?
Mr.
Oh,
President,
But, Mr.
it's an open discussion, please.
Now,
It's a fact.
Well,
It
you
is
have
not a
raised an
fact.
issue. Let the
It's been
Vice
totally
President answer.
discredited.
Did
There was a
Burisma pay him
report.
$183,000
There was
a
a-
month? with no experience and energy?
Mr.
Look,
President,
no job.
my son did nothing wrong at Burisma.
I think he
and
did.
Mr.
the only
President,
guy that
let
did
him
something-
answer.
He doesn't want to let me answer because he knows I have the truth. His position has been totally, thoroughly discredited.
who?
And
The
Ukraine.
media?
By everybody. Well, by the
By the
media,
media,
by our
because they refuse to
allies, by
talk
the
about it
World
because they're
Bank,
embarrassed.
by everyone has discredited. Matter of fact, even
Mr.
the people
President,
who
please stop.
testified under oath.
So let me
under
ask you
oath,
this,
Henry,
Joe.
under
No,
oath.
go ahead, Mr. I'm
Every-
listening to you.
People under,
He got $3.5
he
million from
testified-
Moscow.
He testified under oath in his administration, said, I did my job and I did it very well.
Oh,
I
really?
did it
I'd like
honorably.
to know who they are.
Well, I'll give you the list
I'll
of the
fire
people who
them.
testified.
No, go ahead, sir.
Sure, you've already fired most of them because they did a good job.
Some people don't do
Well,
a good
here's
job. With you,
Go
they
ahead.
say
You
they're
get
here's the
wait a
deal.
minute. You get the final word, Mr.
Well, it's hard to get any word in with this clown. Excuse me, this.
Hey,
this
let me just
person.
say to you,
No.
No.
Mr. President.
$3.5
Mr.
million,
President.
Joe.
That is simply.
Why did
not
he
true.
deserve $3.5 million
It
from
did-
Moscow?
Look, here's the deal. We want to talk about families and ethics. I don't want to do that. I mean,
come
his
on.
family we
Come
could
on,
talk
we
about
need
all
to
night.
get- we
His
need to get
family's
Joe
already-
to-
family,
Come on.
No, let him go.
my
Come
family
on,
lost
somebody
a
get angry.
fortune
Somebody
by
do
coming down and
something.
helping
Go
us
ahead.
with
Somebody
government.
throw your
That's
war
such
with
a-
them.
right
Come
there.
on.
Mr.
That's
President.
such a
Every
great.
single one of them lost
This
a
is not
fortune
about
by
my
coming and
family or
helping
his
us with
family. It's
government.
about your family,
They
the
didn't collect
American people.
$3.5 million
He
for
doesn't.
nothing.
That's not true. It doesn't want to talk about what you need. You, the American people. It's about you. That's what we're talking about
you
here.
should
All right,
Take
that's
Not
the end
about
of
here.
that's the end of the
Shouldn't have
segment.
taken the money.
We're moving on.
He didn't take them.
Well,
Vice
it's a very-
President,
but Chris,
no,
can I be honest? It's a very important
Try to be
question.
honest.
No,
That's
he
a good
stood
thing.
up.
No,
he stood up,
the answer to
and
the
he
question is
threatened
no.
Ukraine
No,
with
sir.
$1 billion
Sir,
if you don't
That
get rid of
is
the
you-
troops.
you know what, you're-
absolutely
wait,
not
stop.
true.
You're doing it.
You're going to
Not
have,
true.
gentlemen. I hate to raise
Chris,
my voice,
he's
but
on
it seems
tape.
to be. Why should I be different than the two of you? So here's the deal.
Good point.
We have 6 segments. We have ended that segment. We're going to go to the next segment. In that segment, you each are going to have 2 uninterrupted moments. In those 2 uninterrupted minutes, Mr. President, you can say anything you want. I'm going to ask a question about race, but if you want to answer about something else, go ahead. But I think that the
Race?
country would be better served.
Oh, you're not
if
going
we
to talk about
allowed
fucking
both
race
people to
again.
speak with fewer
Jesus
interruptions. I'm
Christ.
appealing to you, sir, to do that.
Well, and him too.
Well, frankly, you've been doing more
Fuck
interrupting.
Well, that's
than
all
you
right,
have.
but he does plenty.
Well, less than,
Yeah,
sir, less
there's
than
plenty.
No, less than you have. Let's please
Everything's
continue
about
on.
fucking race.
The issue of race. Vice President Biden, you say that President Trump's response to the violence in Charlottesville 3 years ago, when he talked about very fine people on both sides, was what directly led you to launch this run for president.
Oh, yeah, sure.
President Trump, you have often said that you believe you have done more for black Americans than any president, with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln. My question for the two of you is, why should voters trust you rather than your opponent to deal with the race issues facing this country over the next 4 years? Vice President Biden, you go first.
It's about equity and equality. It's about decency. It's about the Constitution. And we have never walked away from trying to require equity for everyone, equality for the whole of America. But
Equality
we've never
how?
accomplished it. But we've never walked
Do you
away
mean
from it like
equality
he
of
has done.
outcome?
It is true.
Like
the
the
reason I got in the
commies?
races with
Or
those people,
equality of
close your
opportunity?
eyes. Remember what those people look like coming
Like
out of the fields
actual
carrying
people.
torches, their veins bulging, spewing, and just spewing anti-Semitic bile, and accompanied by the Ku Klux Klan. A young woman got killed. And they asked the president what he thought. He said there were very
they died of a heart
fine
attack.
people on both sides. No
They didn't get hit by the
presidents
car, they
ever
died of a
said
heart
anything
attack.
like that.
Finish this.
It is.
I don't know, maybe
Now,
they
second-
got scared or
Second
something.
point I'd make
Probably. But
is that
anyway,
when
they had a heart attack.
Floyd was killed, when Mr.
As far
Floyd
as
was
I know.
killed, there was a peaceful protest in front of the White House. What did he do? He came out of his bunker, had the military use tear gas on him so he could walk across to a church and hold up a Bible. And then what happened after that? The bishop of that very church said that it was a disgrace. The general who was with him said all he ever wants to do is divide people, not unite people at all. This is a president who has used everything as a dog whistle to try to generate racist hatred, racist division. This is a man who, in fact, you talk about helping African Americans. 1 in 1,000 African Americans has been killed because of the coronavirus. And if he doesn't do something quickly, by the end of the year, 1 in 500 will have been killed. 1 in 500 African Americans. This man is the savior of African Americans. This man cares at all. This man's done virtually nothing. Look, the fact is that you have to look at what he talks about. You have to look at what he did. And what he did has been disastrous for the African American community.
So,
President Trump, you have 2 minutes. Why should
Okay, time for
Americans
Trump to bring
trust
up gem
you
cities
over
and
your
say that they're
opponent to
fucking
deal with
ghetto
race?
you did a
shithole.
crime bill, 1994, where you call them
Oh.
super predators, African Americans, the super predators, and they've never forgotten it. They've never forgotten it, Joe.
never
No,
said
no, sir. It's his 2 minutes.
So you did that, and they call you a super predator, and I'm letting people out of jail now that you have treated the African American population community, you have treated the black community about as bad as anybody in this country. You did the 1990, and that's why, if you look at the polls, I'm doing better than any Republican has done in a long time because they saw what you did. You call them super predators, and you've called them worse than that because you look back at your testimony over the years, you've called them a lot worse than that. As far as the church is concerned, and as far as the generals are concerned, we just got the support of 250 military leaders and generals, total support. Law enforcement, almost every law enforcement group in the United States. I have Florida, I have Texas, I have Ohio, I have Portland. The sheriff just came out today and he said, I support President Trump. I don't think you have any law enforcement. You can't even say the word law enforcement because if you say those words, you're going to lose all of your radical left supporters. And why aren't you saying those words, Joe? Why don't you say the words law enforcement? Because you know what? If they called us in Portland, we would put out that fire in a half an hour, but they won't do it because they're run by radical left Democrats. If you look at Chicago, if you look at any place you want to look, Seattle, they heard we were coming in the following day and they put up their hands and we got back Seattle. Minneapolis, we got it back, Joe, because we believe in law and order, but you don't. The top 10 cities and just about the top 40 cities are run by Democrats and in many cases radical left. And they've got you wrapped around their finger, Joe, to a point where you don't want to say anything about law and order. And I'll tell you what, the people of this country want and demand law and order, and you're afraid to even say it.
All right. I want to return to the question of race. Vice President Biden, after the grand jury in the Breonna Taylor case decided not to charge any of the police with homicide, you said it raises the question, quote, whether justice could be equally applied in America. Do you believe that there is a separate but unequal system of justice for blacks in this country?
Yes, there is. There's systemic
cops not.
injustice in this country,
They
in education
reached.
and work, and in
Dude
in
shot
law
at the
enforcement
cops,
and
hit one
the
of
way in
them.
which it's
All the
enforced.
cops returned
But look,
fire,
the vast
blasted the
majority of
dude,
police
and
officers
Breonna.
are good, decent,
Breonna
honorable
was
men
in the
and
way.
women. They risk their lives every day to take care of us. But
Fucking
there are
crazy.
some bad apples.
This
and
is
when
why
they
we need
occur,
body
when they
cams.
find them, they
Everyone
have
should
to be
I just
sorted out.
advocating for
They
body
have to
cams
be held
so you
accountable.
fucking know
They
everything.
have to be held accountable. And what I'm going to do as President of the United States is call together
Fucking hell.
an entire group of people at the White House, well, everything from the civil rights groups to the police officers, the police chiefs, and we're going to work this out. We're going to work this out so we change the way in which we have more transparency in when these things happen. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to George Floyd.
Yeah, if they
These
had body cams,
cops aren't happy
they'd be
to see
fine.
what happened to Breonna Taylor. Most don't like it, but we have to have a system where people are held accountable. When, and by the way,
George Floyd,
violence
the
in
cop shouldn't
response
have been
is
on his
never
neck, but
appropriate.
George Floyd
Never appropriate.
had so much fucking
Peaceful
drugs in his
protest
system,
is.
he OD'd.
Violence is never
He OD'd
appropriate.
anyway.
All right,
He was
What
gonna
is
live another
peaceful
fucking
protest?
this is
When they
stop.
run
Hey,
through the
fucking
middle of a
President
town
Trump-
and burn down your
President Trump,
stores and kill people all
President
over
Trump,
the place,
that
and you
is
say
not
peaceful
peaceful
protest?
President
No,
Trump,
it's
I'm not
not, but
asking-
you say it is.
I did
President
not
Trump,
say
I'd like to continue with the
Yes,
issue
go
of
ahead,
race. I
please.
promise we're going to get to the issue of law and order
Please.
in a moment.
God, it's
This
all about
month,
race.
your administration directed federal agencies to end racial sensitivity training that addresses white privilege or critical race theory. Why did you decide to do that, to end racial sensitivity training? And do you believe that there is systemic racism in this country, sir?
Because
I
it's
ended
written
it
by
because it's
Marxists.
racist. I ended it because a lot of people were complaining that they were
false.
asked to do things that were absolutely insane, that it was a radical revolution that was taking place in our military, in our schools, all over the place, and you know it, and so does everybody
what
else.
Is radical,
and he would know.
What is
it was
radical
totally
about
racist.
racial sensitivity training? Sir?
If you were a certain person, you had no status in life. It was sort of a reversal.
It's like
And if you look
Antifa.
at the
It's a
people,
false
we were
narrative.
paying people hundreds of thousands of
You
dollars
can name it
to teach
racial,
very bad ideas and frankly
equality
very sick
training or
ideas.
whatever.
And really, they were
Look, that ain't
teaching
one of
people
these.
to hate our country. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to allow that to happen.
It was written by commies
We
to
have
hate
to go
America and
back
take it down
to
from
the
the
core
inside.
values of this country. They were teaching people that our country is a horrible place, it's a racist place, and they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm
No
not going to
one
allow
did.
that to happen.
Vice President Biden?
Nobody's doing that. He's the racist.
You just don't.
Here's the deal. I know a lot more about
You
this
don't
than he
know.
does.
Let him finish.
The fact is that there is racial insensitivity. People have to be made aware of what other people feel like, what insults them, what is demeaning to them. It's important to people know they don't want to. Many people don't want to hurt other people's feelings, but it makes a big difference. It makes a gigantic difference in the way a child is able to grow up and have a sense of self-esteem. It's a little bit like how this guy and his friends look down on so many people. They look down their nose on people like Irish Catholics like me and grew up in Scranton. They look down on people who don't have money. They look down on people who are of a different faith. They look down on people who are a different color. In fact, we're all Americans. The only way we're going to bring this country together is bring everybody together. There's nothing we cannot do if we do it together. We can take this on and we can defeat racism in America.
President Trump.
You see, you
During the
understand what he's saying.
Biden administration, there was tremendous division. There was hatred.
But that's not what
You
he's
look
doing.
at, Ferguson, you go to many places. Look at Oakland. Look what happened in Oakland. Look what happened in Baltimore. Look what happened. Frankly, it was more violent than what I'm even seeing now.
Oh, my
but the
Lord.
reason
This
is that
ridiculous.
the Democrats that run these
Absolutely
cities
ridiculous.
don't want to talk like you about law and order.
Violent
and you
crime,
still haven't mentioned.
violent
Are you in
crime.
favor of law and order?
I'm in favor of law. You follow
Are
it
you in
and a little
favor
bit
of
of
law
order.
and order? Go
Yes,
ahead,
I'm
say
in
it.
favor.
You
Everybody's
asked a
in favor
question,
of
let him finish.
Law and
He'll
order.
lose his
Law
left.
and
Let
order.
him answer.
Law and order with justice, where people get treated fairly. And the fact of the matter is, violent crime went down 15% in our administration.
All right.
It's gone up on his watch.
Went down
He-
much more
he
in
had-
ours.
All right,
Oh.
we're
He
down.
is president of
Mr.
the
President, you're going
United
to.
States of America.
Mr. President,
Yeah,
Every
he's the
record of
president,
Mr.
but he's
President,
not in
you're
charge
very
of the
happy
state.
because we're now going to
He's
talk
in
about
charge of the
law and
federal
order.
Places we
government,
had trouble
not the
with
state. That's the
Democratic
governors.
run cities.
That's
and
exactly
those
my question. There
Democratic-
has been a
Set up the
dramatic
governors have to
increase
look
in
after their own
homicides
states,
in
the
America
governors and the mayors.
this summer, particularly,
They
and
have
you
more
often
power than the
blame that on
president
Democratic
in their own
mayors and
states.
Democratic governors, but in fact, there have been
So-
equivalent spikes in Republican-led cities like Tulsa and Fort Worth. So the question is this really a party issue?
I think it's a party issue. You can bring in a couple of examples, but if you look at Chicago, what's going on in Chicago, where 53 people were shot and 8 died, shot. If you look at New York, where it's going up like nobody's ever seen anything, the numbers are going up 100, 150, 200% crime. It
Republican
is
cities.
crazy what's going on. And he doesn't want to say law and order because he can't, because he'll lose his radical left supporters. And once he does that, it's over with. But if he ever got to run this country and they ran it the way he would want to run it, we would have
We would
our
run it
suburbs
the
would be
way-
gone. By the way,
Suburbs.
our suburbs would be gone, and you would see problems like you've
He
never
wouldn't
seen.
know a suburb unless he took a wrong turn.
Oh, I know suburbs.
He would not.
So much
I was
better.
raised.
Go ahead.
I was,
Wait a minute.
I was
So much.
raised in
Hashtag
the
abolish the
suburbs.
suburbs,
This is
anyone?
not 1950. All these dog whistles
that?
and racism don't work anymore.
Little bug.
Suburbs are
Okay.
by and large
Bug on my screen.
integrated. There's many people today driving their kids to soccer practice and/or to black and white and Hispanic in the same car as there have been any time in the past. What really is a threat to the suburbs and their safety is his failure to deal with COVID. They're dying in the
I'm
suburbs.
bursting for
His
feeling
failure
that.
to deal with the environment. They're being flooded. They're being burned out because his refusal to do anything. That's why the suburbs are in trouble.
I do want to talk about this issue of law and order, though. And in the joint recommendation that came from the Biden-Bernie Sanders task force, you talked about, quote, reimagining policing. First of all, what does reimagining policing mean, and do you support?
It means
Let me, if I might finish the question. What does reimagining policing mean, and do you support the Black Lives Matter call for for community control of policing?
Look, what I support is the police having the opportunity to deal with the problems they face. And I'm totally opposed to defunding the police officers. As a matter of fact, local police, the only one defunding in his budget calls for a $400 million cut in local law enforcement assistance. They need more assistance. They need, when they show up for a 9/11 call, to have someone with them as a psychologist or psychiatrist to keep them from having to use force and be able to talk people down. We have to have community policing like we had before, where the officers get to know the people in the communities. That's when crime went down. It didn't go up, it went down.
Right.
And so we have to be engaged.
That's not what
in
they're
prevention.
talking about, Chris. That's
well,
not what
that-
they're
that's
He's talking
exactly-
about defunding the police.
That is not true.
He doesn't have any
Would-
law
would you-
support.
look,
He has no law enforcement
That's not
support.
true.
Almost
That's
nothing.
not. Look,
Oh, really? Who do you have? Name one group that supports you. Name one group that came out and supported you. Go
Look,
ahead.
look.
Think. We have time.
we don't have time to do
No,
anything.
think
except
about
listen.
it.
Look,
Name
folks,
one law
folks,
enforcement group that came out and
I
supported
think, gentlemen,
you,
I think
Joe.
I'm going to take back the
There aren't.
moderator's
I don't
role,
think there are any.
and I want to get to another subject, which is the issue of protests in many cities that have turned violent. In Portland, Oregon, especially, we had more than 100 straight days of protests, which I think you would agree. You talk about peaceful protests. Many of those turned into riots. Mr. Vice President,
He said right.
you say that people who commit crimes should be held accountable. The question I have, though, is as the Democratic nominee, and earlier tonight you said that you are the Democratic Party right now, have you ever called the Democratic mayor of Portland or the Democratic governor of Oregon and said, hey, you got to stop this, bring in the National Guard, do whatever it takes, but you'd stop the days and months of violence in Portland?
I don't hold public office now. I am a former vice president. I've made it clear. I've made it clear in my public statements that the violence should be prosecuted. It should be prosecuted, and anyone who commits it.
But
should
you've
be
never
prosecuted.
called for the people, the leader. Excuse
Call
me,
out
sir.
Antifa.
You had never called for
Go
the
on.
leaders in Portland and in Oregon to
Because
bring in
they-
the National Guard and knock off 100 days of riots.
They can, in fact, take care of it if he just stay out of the way. Look here.
Oh, really?
Here-
Oh, really?
Here's the thing.
I sent in the
wait, I
U.S.
asked him a
Marshals
question.
to get the killer of the young man in the middle of the street, and they shot him. And
Right.
for 3
Mr.
days,
President Trump,
Portland
President
wouldn't do
Trump,
anything. I
he's
had to send in
interrupted.
the U.S. Marshals.
President
They
Trump,
took care of business.
Go ahead,
And,
sir.
and by the way, his own former spokesperson said, riots and chaos and violence help his cause. That's what this is all about.
I don't know who said that.
I do.
Who?
I think Kellyanne Conway.
I don't think she said that.
She said
I
that.
don't-
And so here's the
All right.
But here's the point.
Go
The
ahead,
point
sir.
is that that's what he is keeps trying to rile everything up. He doesn't want to calm things down. Instead of going in and talking to people and saying, let's get everybody together, figure out how to deal with this. What's he do? He just pours gasoline in the fire constantly,
And-
every single solitary
Okay,
time.
and to end this, button up this segment, I'm going to give you a minute to answer, sir. You have repeatedly
Well, wait, I
criticized.
have to answer his
No,
statement.
you have
His statement.
repeatedly.
Wait,
you have
just one
no.
second.
You've been talking
He
back
made
and
a
forth.
statement.
I'm asking you.
I would love to
you know,
end it.
sir.
I would love to end it,
I,
and
you
we
know, if
would
you want to
very-
switch seats,
We would
could
very quickly.
We could do that, but
I'd
I'm
send
no,
in
I'm-
the National Guard. It would be over. There'd be no problem.
Okay,
But they
good.
don't want to accept the National Guard.
You have repeatedly criticized the vice president for not specifically calling out Antifa and other left-wing
That's right.
extremist groups. But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and
Oh my
militia
God,
groups
stop.
and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
Are you
I'm willing
prepared
to
to
do that.
specifically
Everyone
But
who isn't a
I
Go
would
ahead,
Nazi
say,
sir.
I would
is
say
a
almost
Nazi
everything
to
I
the
see is
far,
from the
far,
left
far
wing,
left.
not from the right
So
wing.
what are you
If look,
saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see
Well,
peace.
then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it.
I.e.,
Say it.
two
You wanna
commies.
call him-
If you win a
What do
commie,
you want to call them? Give me a name. Give
You're
me
a
a
white
name.
supremacist
Go ahead.
and
Who would
white
you like me to
supremacist.
condemn?
White
you need to
supremacists
stop.
and right
Proud
wing
Proud
militia.
Boys,
Back of
stand
the head.
back
Who
and
fucking
stand by.
cares?
But I'll tell you what.
Like, no,
I'll
that's
tell you what.
fucking-
Somebody's got
no.
to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem.
His
This
own
is a left-wing.
FBI director
This
said
is
the
a
threat
left-wing
of
Go ahead,
problem.
white
Go ahead, sir.
supremacists. Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
Oh, you gotta be
not
kidding.
militia.
Oh, no,
That's
he's
what
doing
it is.
this.
Tonight. idea.
FBI his
Okay.
FBI director
Gentlemen,
has said.
Well,
we're
then
gonna-
you know what?
No, no,
And
no,
Antifa
we're
is
done,
an
sir.
ideology.
We're moving on to the next.
Everybody
We're
gives
When
you
a bat
advice
hits
in
you
your
over the head, that's not
administration.
an idea.
Yeah,
Everybody
and
in your
communism has
administration
never
tells
been
you the
tried.
truth is a bad idea.
Can I tell you what?
You have no
Fucking
idea.
Antifa is a dangerous
all right,
radical
gentlemen.
group.
We're now moving on to the Trump
and
and
you ought to be
Biden
careful with
records.
them. They'll overthrow you.
When
in
a
2
president,
seconds.
I'm going to ask a question. When the president seeks a second term, it is generally a referendum on his record. But Vice President Biden, you like to quote one of your dad's sayings, which is, "Don't compare me to the Almighty, compare me to the alternative." And in this case, sir, you are the alternative. Looking at both of your records, I'm going to ask each of you, why should voters elect you president over your opponent? In this segment, President Trump, you go first, 2 minutes.
Because there has never been an administration or president who has done more than I've done in a period of 3.5 years. And that's despite the impeachment hoax. And you saw what happened today with Hillary Clinton, where it was a whole big con job. But despite going through all of these things, where I had to fight both flanks and behind me and above, there has never been an administration that's done what I've done. The greatest, before COVID came in, the greatest economy in history, lowest unemployment numbers. Everything was good. Everything was going. And by the way, there was unity going to happen. People were calling me for the first time in years. They were calling and they were saying, it's time maybe. And then what happened? We got hit, but now we're building it back up again. A rebuilding of the military, including Space Force and all of the other things. A fixing of the VA, which was a mess under him. 308,000 people died because they didn't have proper health care. He was a mess. And we now got a 91% approval rating at the VA, our vets. We take care of our vets. But we've rebuilt our military. The job that we've done, and I'll tell you something, some people say maybe the most important. By the end of the first term, I'll have approximately 300 federal judges and Court of Appeals judges, 300, and hopefully 3 great Supreme Court justices. That is a record, the likes of which very few people, and you know one of the reasons I'll have so many judges? Because President Obama and him left me 128 judges to fill. When you leave office, you don't leave any judges. That's like, you just don't do that. They left 128 openings, and if I were a member of his party, because they have a little different philosophy, I'd say if you left us 128 openings, you can't be a good president, you can't be a good vice president. But I want to thank you because it gives us almost, it'll probably be above that number by the end of this term.
Fine, sir.
300 judges, it's a record.
Looking at both your records, why should voters elect you president as opposed to President Trump? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Under this president, we become weaker, sicker, poorer, more divided, and more violent. When I was vice president, we inherited a recession. I was asked to fix it. I did. We left him a booming economy, and he caused the recession. With regard to being weaker, the fact is that I've gone head-to-head with Putin and made it clear to him we're not going to take any of his stuff. He's Putin's puppy. He still refuses to even say anything to Putin about the bounty on the heads of American soldiers.
Your son got
No,
$3.5 million.
And by the way,
Mr.
my
President,
son,
I'm gonna call out
Mr.
Russia while my
President,
son gets
your
paid
campaign
millions.
agreed to both sides would get 2-minute answers uninterrupted. Well, your side agreed to it, and why don't you observe what your campaign agreed to as a ground rule, okay, sir?
he never keeps his word. Can you add
No,
back
no,
He's
I'm
a
not
person
asking.
that's
That
not
was a
yelling.
rhetorical question.
Can you
Go
add
ahead,
back
sir.
30 seconds?
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
you may have.
All right.
Go ahead.
So, thirdly, we're poor. The billionaires have gotten much more wealthy by a tune of over $300 to $400 billion more just since COVID. You in the home, you got less. You're in more trouble than you were before. In terms of being more violent, when we were in office, there were 15% less violence in America than there is today. He's president of the United States. It's on his watch. And with regard to
You can't
more
say that
divided,
when they're just
the
in your
nation can't
cities.
stay divided. We can't be this way. And speaking of my son, the way you talk
You
about
can't
the
blame
military,
him for your
the way you
cities
talk
being
about
shit.
them being losers and being and just
You can
being
try, though.
suckers.
Yeah.
My son was in Iraq. He spent a year there. He got the Bronze Star. He got the Conspicuous Service Medal. He was not a loser. He was a patriot, And the people left behind there were heroes.
Really?
And I resent.
Are you talking
like
about Hunter?
hell.
Are you talking about Hunter?
I'm talking about my son, Bo Biden. You're talking about
I don't know Bo. I know Hunter.
Yeah,
Hunter
you know
got
Bo.
thrown. Hunter got thrown out of the military. He was thrown out, dishonorably discharged.
That's not true. He
For
wasn't dishonorably.
cocaine use. And he didn't have a job until you became vice president. And once you
None
became
of that
vice
is
president,
true.
he made a fortune in Ukraine, in China, in Moscow,
That is simply
and various
not
other places.
true.
He
My
made a
son,
fortune.
Gentlemen,
My son,
And he didn't have a job.
my son, like a lot of people we know at home, had a drug problem. He's overtaken it. He's fixed it. He's worked on it. And I'm proud of him.
But why
I'm
was he
proud of
given
my
tens
son.
of millions
All
of
right.
But
dollars?
he wasn't given
All right.
tens of millions
was
of dollars.
given
That
tens
is
of
totally,
millions of
that's
dollars.
President Trump-
totally
President Trump,
discredited.
you've already been
Totally discredited.
We've already been through this. I think the American people would rather hear about more substantial
So do I.
subjects. Well, you know, as the moderator, sir, I'm going to make
I know,
a
but when
judgment
somebody
call here.
gets $3.5 million
Okay,
from
great.
the
Let's
mayor
talk about-
of Moscow,
let's
That
talk
is
about-
not
I think
true.
it's a terrible
That
thing.
report is totally
Why did he get
discredited.
it?
I
Mitt
think,
Romney on that committee said it wasn't worth taxpayers'
Gen-
money, that report. It was written for political reasons.
you know, I'd like to talk about climate change.
So would I.
Oh my
Okay.
God.
The forest fires in the West are raging now. They have burned millions of acres. They have displaced hundreds of thousands of people. When state officials there blame the fires on climate change, Mr. President, you said, I don't think the science knows. Over your 4 years, you have pulled the U.S. out of the Paris
It's
Climate
California.
Accord.
It's
You
fucking
have rolled
hot.
back a number of Obama
Yeah, it
environmental
burns
records.
sometimes.
What
Australia
do you
burns as
believe
well.
about the science of climate change, and what will you
If they don't
do
take
in the
care of
next
the
4
forest
years
and
to
the
confront it?
I
burn
want
back the bushes,
crystal
the-
clean
the
water
fucking-
and air. I want
Yeah.
beautiful clean air.
Leaves
We
get
have now
everywhere.
the lowest carbon.
And they
If you
get
look
dry,
at
and then they
our
burn.
numbers right now, we are
They burn like a
doing
hellfire.
phenomenally. But I haven't destroyed our businesses. Our businesses aren't put out of commission. If you look at the Paris Accord, it was a disaster from our standpoint. And people are actually very happy about what's going on because our businesses are doing well. As far as the fires are concerned, you need forest management in addition to everything else. The forest floors are loaded up with trees, dead trees that are years old, and they're like tinder, and
Yep.
leaves and everything else. You drop a cigarette in there, the whole forest burns down. You've got to have forest management.
What do you
You've got to have
believe?
cuts.
What do you believe about the science of climate change, sir?
I believe that we have to do everything we can to have immaculate air, immaculate water, and do whatever else we can that's good. You know, we're planting 1 billion trees, the Billion Tree Project, and it's very
Do you
exciting.
believe
for a lot
that,
of
that
yeah,
human
that's fair.
pollution, greenhouse gas emissions contributes to the global warming of
I
this
think
planet?
a lot of things do, but I think
No,
to an extent,
no.
yes.
It-
I think
it
to an
does,
extent,
but
yes.
only
But I also
1%
think we have to do better
the
management
energy
of
we
our
get from the
forests.
sun
Every
is
year,
human energy.
I get the call.
So it
California's
doesn't really
burning.
fucking matter.
California's burning. If that was cleaned, if you had forest management, good forest management, you wouldn't be getting those calls. You know, in Europe, they have forest cities. They're called forest cities. They maintain their forests. They manage their forests. I was with the head of a major country. It's a forest city. He said, sir, we have trees that are far more, they ignite much easier than California. There shouldn't be that problem. I spoke with the governor about it. I'm getting along very well with the governor. But I said, you know, at some point, you can't every year have hundreds of thousands of acres of land just burned to the ground.
But, sir,
That's burning down because of a lack of
But,
management.
sir, if you believe in the science of climate change, why have you rolled back the Obama Clean Power Plan, which limited carbon emissions in power plants? Why have you relaxed?
Because it was driving energy prices through the sky.
Why have you relaxed
Because it's
fuel
dumb.
economy standards that are going to create more pollution from cars
Well,
and
not
trucks?
really, because what's happening is the car is much less expensive and it's a much safer car, and you're talking about a tiny difference. And then what would happen, because of the cost of the car, you would have at least double and triple the number of cars purchased. We have the old slugs out there that are 10, 12 years old. If you did that, the car would be safer. It would be much cheaper by
But in the case of
$3,500.
California, they've simply
No, but you
ignored
would take
your-
a lot
your
of cars
rollback.
off the market because people would be able to afford a car. Now, and by the way, we're going to see how that turns out. But a lot of people agree with me, many people. The car has gotten so expensive because they have computers all over the place for an extra little bit
Okay.
of gasoline. And
That's not-
and I'm okay with electric cars too. I think I'm all for electric cars. I've given big incentives for electric cars. But what they've done in California is just
All right.
crazy.
Vice President Biden, I'd like you to respond to the president's climate change record, but I also want to ask you about a concern. You proposed $2 trillion in green jobs. You talk about new limits, not abolishing, but new limits on fracking, ending the use of fossil fuels to generate electricity by 2035, and zero net emission of greenhouse gases by 2050. The president says a lot of these things would tank the economy and cost millions of jobs.
He's absolutely wrong, number one.
That
Number
sounds
two,
like death.
if in fact, during our
just
administration,
our
the
entire
Recovery Act, I
economy.
was in charge, able to bring down the cost of renewable energy to cheaper than or as cheap as coal and gas and oil. Nobody's going to build another coal-fired plant in America. No one's going to build another oil-fired plant in America. They're going to move to renewable energy, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that we are able to take the federal fleet and turn it into a fleet that's run on their electric vehicles. Making sure that we can do that, we're going to put 500,000 charging stations and all of the highways that we're going to be building in the future. We're going to build an economy that, in fact, is going to provide for the ability us to take 4 million buildings and make sure that they, in fact, are weatherized in a way that, in fact, they'll emit significantly less gas and oil because the heat will not be going out. There's so many things that we can do now to create thousands and thousands of jobs. We can get to net zero in terms of energy production by 2035. Not only not costing people jobs, creating millions of good paying jobs, not $15 an hour, but prevailing wage, by having a new infrastructure that in fact is green. And the first thing I will do, I will rejoin the Paris Accord. I will join the Paris Accord because with us out of it, look what's happening. It's all falling apart. And talk about someone who has no relationship with foreign policy. Brazil, the rainforests of Brazil are being torn down, are being ripped down. More carbon is absorbed in that rainforest than every bit of carbon that's emitted in the United States. Instead of doing something about that, I would be gathering up and making sure we had the countries of the world coming up with $20 billion and say, here's $20 billion. Stop tearing down the forest. And if you don't, then you're going to have significant economic consequences.
What about the argument that
this
President Trump
40
basically
years ago,
says that you have to
we'd be
balance
underwater by 2000.
environmental interests and economic interests,
2020,
and he's drawn his line.
Well, he hasn't drawn a line. He still, for example, makes sure that he wants to make sure that methane's not a problem. You can now emit more methane without it being a problem. Methane. This is a guy who says that you don't have to have mileage standards for automobiles that exist now. This is the guy who says that, well, the fact that it's all true. And here's the deal.
He's talking about the Green New Deal, and it's not $2 billion or $20 billion, as you said. It's $100 trillion.
I'm talking about
where they want to rip down buildings and rebuild the building.
No,
it's the
that
dumbest,
is not,
most
that is not,
where airplanes are out of business, where two-car systems are out, where they want to take out the cows too. That's not true either, right? This is a 100 trillion.
Look,
that's more money than our country could make in 100 years if we're
not
going.
The case.
All right, let me because I actually wait a minute, sir. I actually have studied your plan, and it includes upgrading 4 million buildings, weatherizing 2 million homes over 4 years, building 1.5 million energy efficient homes. So the question becomes, the president is saying, I think some people who support the president would say that sounds like it's going to cost a lot of money and hurt the economy.
What it's going to do is going to create thousands and millions of jobs, good paying jobs.
Let him finish, sir.
But who pays for these jobs? If the government pays for these jobs, then that's
millions of
tax
good
money.
paying jobs. And these tax incentives for people to weatherize, which he wants to get rid of. It's going to make the economy much safer. Look how much we're paying now to deal with the hurricanes. By the way, he has an answer for hurricanes. He said maybe we should drop a nuclear weapon on them. They may.
I never said that.
Oh my
He did say
you made it up.
And here's the deal.
You make up a
we are going to be in a position
it's
where
not a thing that's
we
riding
can
like the
create
50s trying to do hurricanes.
good jobs by making sure the
Project Harp and
environment
all that.
is clean and we all are in better
So they
shape.
tried it.
We spend billions of dollars now, billions of dollars on floods, hurricanes, rising seas. We're in real trouble. Look what's happening just in the Midwest with these storms that come through and wipe out entire sections and counties in Iowa. That didn't happen before. They're because of global warming. We make up 15% of the world's problem. We, in fact,
Okay, we'll talk to
the rest of the world, we got
70%
to get
as
them
in
to come
China.
along. That's why we have to get back into
If
the
you're serious
Paris
about climate
Accord.
change,
All right, gentlemen,
Wait
we,
a
Go
minute, Chris. So
bully
why didn't he
China.
do it for 47 years? You were vice president. Why didn't you get the world? China sends up real dirt into the air. Russia does. India does. They all do. We're supposed to be good. And by the way, he made a couple of statements. The Green New Deal is $100 trillion,
That is
not
not
$20
my
billion.
plan.
That's
the Green
well,
New
you want to
Deal
rebuild every
is
building.
not my plan.
You want to rebuild
all right.
every.
If he knew
you asked
anything
it- wait, no, no,
about,
wait.
if he
Gentlemen?
knew
He
anything
made a
about,
statement
Gentlemen?
about the military. He said I said something about the military. He and his friends made it up, and then they went with it. I never said it.
Okay.
that is
What
not
he
true.
did
Sir,
is he
you're done in
said
this segment.
he called
Mr.
the military
Mr. Vice President,
stupid bastards.
I
and he
did
said
not
it on
say that.
tape. He
That is-
said
Oh, my
stupid
God.
bastards.
Please,
He
sir,
said it.
stop.
I would never
I
say
would
that
play
to
it.
the
Stop.
military.
Play it.
Go ahead.
Play it.
on
Vice
tape.
President
Oh.
answered his final question.
The final question is, I can't remember which of all his rantings. was the
I'm having,
final
a little
question.
I'm having a little trouble
That's
myself, but
Yeah.
and about the economy and about this question of what it's going to cost.
The economy.
I mean, the Green New Deal and the
the-
idea of what
the-
your
the Green
environmental
New
changes
Deal-
will do.
The Green New Deal will pay for itself as we move forward. We're not going to build plants that, in fact, are great polluting plants.
So do you
We're going to
support
build.
the Green New Deal?
Pardon me?
You support that?
No, I don't support the Green
Oh,
New
you
Deal.
don't? Oh, well, that's a
you
big
let-
statement.
Oh,
I
God.
That means
support
you
the
just
Biden.
lost
Oh,
the radical
God.
left.
I,
That's
sup-
done.
I support
Oh, you
the
don't.
Biden plan that I put forward.
Okay.
The Biden plan, which is different than
Burn
what
it
he
down, boy.
calls
She
the
doesn't like the
radical
Green New Deal.
All right, gentlemen,
it down.
final segment, election integrity. As we meet tonight, millions of Americans are receiving mail-in ballots or going to vote early. How confident should we be that this will be a fair election, and what are you prepared to do over the next 5+ weeks, because it'll not only be to Election Day, but also counting some ballots, mail-in ballots after Election Day. What are you prepared to do to reassure the American people that the next president will be the legitimate winner of this election? In this final segment, Mr. Vice President, you go first.
Prepared to let people vote. They should go to iwillvote.com, decide how they're going to vote, when they're going to vote, and what means by which they're going to vote. His own Homeland Security Director, and as well as the FBI Director, says there is no evidence at all that mail-in ballots are a source of being manipulated and cheating. They said that. The fact is that there are
yes,
going to be
there
millions
are.
of people because of COVID that are going to be
They've had
voting
like
by
3
mail-in
mail-in
ballots, like he
ballots
does,
on
by
like
the way.
1/10,
He sits behind the Resolute
1/100
desk
of
and
the
sends his
state.
ballot to Florida.
And they've all
Number one.
fucking
Number
failed.
two, we're going to make sure that those people who want to vote in person are able to vote because enough poll watchers are there to make sure they can socially distance. The polls are open on time, and the polls stay open until the votes are counted. And this is all about trying to dissuade people from voting because he's trying to,
Why not just have the
to
polls
scare
open for
people
a
into
week
thinking that it's not going to be
and
legitimate.
just mail out
Show
people's
up
like
and vote.
time slot?
You will determine the
Would that
outcome
not
of
be
this
easier
election.
than
Vote,
mail-in
vote,
ballots?
vote. If you're able to vote
Maybe
early in
leave
your
it open
state,
for like a
vote
week.
early. If you're able to vote in person, vote in person. Vote whatever way is the best way for you, because he cannot stop you from being able to determine the outcome of this election. And in terms of whether or not, when the votes are counted, and they're all counted, that will be accepted. If I win, that will be accepted. If I lose, that'll be accepted. But by the way, if in fact he says he's not sure what he's going to accept, well, let me tell you something. It doesn't matter, because if we get the votes, it's going to be all over. He's going to go. He can't stay in power. It won't happen. It won't happen. So vote. Just make sure you understand you have it in your control to determine what this country is going to look like the next 4 years. Is it going to change, or you get 4 more years of these lies?
Mr. President, 2 minutes.
So when I listened to Joe talking about a transition, there's been no transition from when I won. I won that election. And if you look at crooked Hillary Clinton, if you look at all of the different people, there was no transition, because they came after me trying to do a coup. They came after me spying on my campaign. They started from the day I won, and even before I won, from the day I came down the escalator with our First Lady. They were a disaster. They were a disgrace to our country. And we've caught them. We've caught them all. We've got it all on tape. We've caught them all. And by the way, you gave the idea for the Logan Act against General Flynn. You better take a look at that, because we caught you in a sense, and President Obama was sitting in the office. He knew about it too. So don't tell me about a free transition. As far as the ballots are concerned, it's a disaster. A solicited ballot, okay, solicited is okay. You're soliciting, you're asking, they send it back, you send it back. I did that. If you have an unsolicited, they're sending millions of ballots all over the country. There's fraud. They found them in creeks. They found some with the name Trump, just happened to have the name Trump just the other day in a waste paper basket. They're being sent all over the place. They sent 2 in a Democrat area. They sent out 1,000 ballots. Everybody got 2 ballots. This is going to be a fraud like you've never seen. The other thing, it's nice on November 3rd, you're watching and you see who won the election. And I think we're going to do well because people are really happy with the job we've done. But you know what? We won't know. We might not know for months because these ballots are going to be all over. Take a look at what happened in Manhattan. Take a look at what happened in New Jersey. Take a look at what happened in Virginia and other places. They're not losing 2%, 1%, which, by the way, is too much. An election could be
30%.
won or lost with that. They're losing 30 and 40%. It's a fraud, and it's a shame. And can you imagine where they say, you have to have your ballot in by November 10th. November 10th. That means that's 7 days after the election, in theory, should have been announced.
Okay.
We have major states with that.
Sir,
all run by Democrats.
2 minutes is 2 minutes.
All run by Democrats. It's
President Trump,
it's a rigged election.
you're going to be able to continue. You have been charging for months that mail-in balloting is going to be a disaster. You say it's rigged, that it's going to lead to fraud. But in 2018, in the last midterm election, 31 million people voted mail-in voting. That was a quarter, more than a quarter of all the voters that year cast their ballots by mail. Now that millions of mail-in ballots have gone out, what are you going to do about it? And are you counting on the Supreme Court, including a Justice Barrett, to settle any dispute?
Yeah, I think I'm counting on them to look at the ballots, definitely. I hope we don't need them in terms of the election itself. But for the ballots, I think so. Because what's happening is incredible. I read today, where at least 1% of the ballots for 2016 were invalidated. They take them, we don't like them, we don't like them.
But what
they
are you
throw
going to
them
do
out
about it?
left
There
and
are
right.
millions of ballots going out right now.
What you do is you go and vote. You do a solicited ballot, and that's okay, or you go and vote.
I'm asking you about the fact that millions of people
You go and vote. You go and vote.
But
like
what I'm
they,
saying is,
like they used to in the old.
Millions of people.
You either do, Chris, a solicited ballot where you're sending it in, they're sending it back, and you're sending. They have mailmen with lots of it. Did you see what's going on? Take a look at West Virginia. Mailmen selling the ballots. They're being sold. They're being dumped in rivers. This is a horrible thing for our country. This is not going to end well.
There is no
this is
evidence
not going
Vice
to
President
end well.
Biden,
5 states
in
have
fact,
had
Hey, if there
mail-in
can be
ballots
fraud,
for the last decade or more.
You know,
5, including 2 Republican states.
if there's fraud,
and you
the
don't have to
Dems will do
solicit
it.
the ballot, it's
But
sent
also
to you.
the
It's sent to your
Republicans will
home.
do it.
What we're saying is,
They'll all
that
fucking
it has to
do
be a
it.
postmark
They're all gonna
by
make
the
it a shit show.
time, by
It's
election
not
day.
one or the other.
If
It's,
it doesn't
if
get
it can
in
be
until
fucked,
the
it's
7th,
gonna get
8th,
fucked
9th,
in the
it
ass
still should
by both
be
of them.
counted. He's just afraid of counting the votes because he knows
You're
the
wrong.
outcome.
You're wrong.
I want to continue with you on
I
this,
love
Vice
counting the
President
votes.
Biden.
Chris, he's so wrong when he makes a statement like that.
Excuse me, Vice President Biden. The biggest problem, in fact, over the years with mail-in voting has not been fraud historically. It has been that sizable numbers, sometimes hundreds of thousands of ballots are thrown out because they have not been properly filled out, or there is some other irregularity, or they missed the deadline. So the question I have is, are you concerned that the Supreme Court with a Justice Barrett will settle any dispute?
I'm concerned
there could be a lot
that
of
any
confusion.
court would settle this because here's the deal.
A lot of people get
When you
confused.
when you get a ballot and you fill it out, you're supposed to have an affidavit. If you didn't know, you have someone say that this is me. You should be able to, if in fact you can verify that's you before the ballot is thrown out, that's sufficient to be able to count the ballot because someone made a mistake and not dotting the correct I. Who they voted for, testify, say who they voted for, say it's you. That is totally legitimate.
All right.
Excuse me,
No,
Chris,
no, no.
when you
I
have
a final,
80 million ballots
gentlemen, I have a final
sent in
question.
and swamping the system, you know it can't be done. You know it can't. And already
All
there's
right.
been
So now,
fraud.
Mail service
deception.
delivers
wait a minute, gentlemen. And the
185
final
million
question
pieces of
is,
mail a day.
in
million
8
ballots.
states, we can keep talking.
It's
in
a-
8
it's a
states,
disgrace.
election workers are
There it is.
prohibited, currently by law, 8 states, from even beginning to process ballots, even take them out of the envelopes and
Yes.
flatten them until Election Day. That means that it's likely, because there's going to be a huge increase in mail-in balloting, that we are not going to know on election night who the winner is, that it could be days, it could be weeks,
Could be months.
until we find out who the new president is. So first for you, sir, finally for the vice president, I hope neither of you will interrupt the other. Will you urge your supporters
let's hope the poll
to stay
stations that
calm
hold on to
during
ballots don't
this extended period,
mysteriously burn
not
down?
to engage in any civil unrest?
That
And
would
will
be
you pledge
interesting.
tonight that you will not declare victory until the election has been independently certified? President Trump, you
I'm
go first.
urging my supporters to go into the polls and watch very carefully, because that's what has to happen. I am urging them to do it. As you know, today there was a big problem. In Philadelphia, they went in to watch. They're called poll watchers, a very safe, very nice thing. They were thrown out. They weren't allowed to watch. You know why? Because bad things happen in Philadelphia, bad things. And I am urging my people. I hope it's going to be a fair election. If it's a fair
You're urging
election,
them what?
I am 100% on board. But if I see tens of thousands of ballots being manipulated, I can't go along with that. And I'll tell you what,
does that
from
mean,
a common
not go along?
sense,
Does that mean
I'll
you're going
tell
to
you
tell
what
your
it means.
people to take to the
It means you have a fraudulent election. You're
And what are
sending
you
out
gonna do?
80
And
million
what would you
ballots.
do about that?
They're not equipped to. These people aren't equipped to handle it. Number one. Number two,
Okay.
they cheat. They cheat. Hey, they found ballots in a waste paper basket 3 days ago, and they all had the name military ballots. They were military. They all had the name Trump on them.
Vice President
think
Biden,
that's good?
Vice President Biden, final question for you. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm while the vote is counted, and will you pledge not to declare victory until the election is independently certified?
Yes,
No.
and here's the deal.
Okay,
They count the
yeah.
ballots, as you pointed out. Some of these ballots in some states can't even be opened until Election Day. And if there's thousands of ballots, it's going to take time to do it. And by the way, our military, they've been voting by ballots since the end of the Civil War, in effect. And that's what's going to happen. Why was it not? Why is it for them somehow not fraudulent? It's the same process. It's honest. No one has established at all that there is fraud related to mail-in ballots, that somehow it's a fraudulent process.
It's already been established. Take a
but-
look at Carolyn Maloney's race
I
in
asked
Manhattan.
you had an opportunity
Look
to
at
respond.
Carolyn Monroe.
Go ahead.
They have no idea what
Vice
happened.
President Biden, go ahead.
He has no idea what he's talking about. Here's the deal. The fact is, I will accept it, and he will too. You know why? Because once the winner is declared, after all the ballots are counted, all the votes are counted, that'll be the end of it. That'll be the end of it. And if it's me, in fact, fine. If it's not me, I'll support the outcome, and I'll be a president not just for the Democrats. I'll be a president for Democrats and Republicans. And this guy,
I want to
in
see an
fact,
honest
Okay,
ballot count.
gentlemen,
We-
you say that's the end of
Chris,
it? This is
I
the end
wanna
of this
see an
debate?
honest ballot count.
We're
And I
going to
think
leave
he
it
does
there.
too.
To be
he
continued
does.
as in more debates as we go on. President Trump, Vice President Biden, it's been an interesting hour and a half. I want to thank you both for participating in the first of 3 debates that you have agreed to engage in. We want to thank Case Western Reserve University and the Cleveland Clinic for hosting this event. The next debate, sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates, will be 1 week from tomorrow, October 7th, at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City. The 2 vice presidential nominees, Vice President Mike Pence and Senator Kamala Harris, will debate at 9 p.m. Eastern that night. We hope you watch. Until then, thank you and good night.
Peace out.
Thank you.
Okay. Any fight. Any fist fight. No, is it just picture time? It's just picture time, I suppose. Just sounds like golf. These golf claps, man. Ah! Last guy. We love you, Trump. You are America. Oh, good God. Good God. Okay, well that's the end of round one. Okay. So what did I think? Meh. Meh. Wasn't really a fiery debate. Biden didn't get mad. Trump didn't get mad. Kind of them just talking. Meh. Hopefully we're done with just the fucking random ass talking. So next time they can actually, I don't know, fight. Come on, come on. We gotta see him actually argue about something. Good God, there wasn't really any argument there. He was just kind of ah. Oh, I'll be back in a sec. There, enjoy AIDS. Okay, that's a 20k away. Yeah, it's fine. It's going in. Alright, let's see if there's anything. Oh, that's a lot of things live. Okay then. Okay, that's Jesus Christ. Oof. Hmm. Yeah, I guess we can just go back to what we were listening to earlier.
Thank you.
There's about 10 minutes left.
I'll start with the EVA piece. So in terms of training for EVA, actually all four of us are trained for EVA. In terms of going out the door, Victor, myself, and Suichi will go out the door.
And Kate.
And Kate, thank you. But then Shannon has, I would actually say, probably the more difficult role, and that's getting us out the door. That is a very compressed timeline. There's a lot going on, a lot of different procedures that have to be tracked, and it's critical. And so all four of us, in terms of including Kate, are prepared to go out the door, and Shannon is just as important part of that role in terms of making the EVAs happen. In terms of what we're going to be doing, I don't know if anybody else wants to chime in on that one.
We do a little bit of refresher training. The bulk of our training is complete, but there will probably be a sim or two in there to make sure that our skills are tip-top when we're ready to go. But we do also get the opportunity to take some time off. And so we'll have about a week where we can spend time with our families and wrap things up at home before we go away. That's going, our time on orbit's across a major holiday season. We'll be home after tax season. There may be things that we need to take care of before we go. Yeah, taxes. You gotta do your taxes. And then we'll be right into quarantine, getting ready to go.
All right, let's go to Frida Juarez with El Universal.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for taking my question. I was wondering, this one is for everybody. How does the pandemic change your perspective from space and your perspective about being an astronaut?
Well, can I say that I was joking in describing this time with my family that, they get to experience a little bit what it's going to be like to live on the space station with the increase in isolation and having to find new ways to communicate virtually, doing their schoolwork. Our kids are doing schoolwork online. And so I think that's one, like maybe a positive spin you could put on this is the entire planet is in one way or another experiencing, the austerity that comes with living on the International Space Station. But I will also say that the perspective piece, for me, it has given me a greater sense of respect for the people that have had to go out and continue to keep our communities clean, the folks that are picking up the trash and making sure that our facilities are clean, and the folks that have to continue to come in and help us to train and be ready for this mission, and that created and built this vehicle or are still building this vehicle. And so I thought I was already grateful, but I am increasingly grateful for all of their hard work.
All right, Irene Klotz with Aviation Week.
Thanks. This is for Mike or Victor or Shannon. NASA has gone through this route of trying to open up LEO previously, and shortly after shuttle started flying was flying politicians and school teacher and so forth, and we know how that worked out. What do you think, can you give me a couple of examples specifically about how the risk assessment has changed from shuttle era to what you all are working now with SpaceX and Boeing in the commercial crew program?
I think, first of all, it starts just with the design of the vehicle and what they each were made for. When you look at the space shuttle, it was made for a kind of a different purpose in terms of it was made to help build the space station, for example. And so based on that, how it was built and all of that put different risks, I would say, with flying on the space shuttle versus with these vehicles. What you see with SpaceX, what you see being developed for Boeing, they have a much smaller mission set, if you will. They are being made to take people to low Earth orbit, to the International Space Station, and bring them back. And so they're not being asked to do the same types of things that the space shuttle was asked to do. And so because of that, I think you'll find that the risk is a little bit different. And I would also say that we've got the advantage of 40 years, 50 years since the designs of the space shuttle. And so obviously we've learned a lot from the space shuttle experience, and we've applied those to these vehicles. And you can see it, earlier we got asked about the TPS issue. All of that experience from the shuttle is being applied right now to this vehicle, and we're taking advantage of that. And so that's not only making it safer for us, but as we look at potentially other folks being able to fly on these vehicles, it's making it safer for them as well.
And having the 20 years of human presence in low Earth orbit has given us the time to work out the operations, the technology, and the teamwork, really, the partnership, the 15 to 18 nations that make it possible for us to have this International Space Station. So that's also grown our abilities to work and live in space.
All right, let's go to Mary Lou Bender with Cosmic Perspective.
Hi,
Hi, thank you. This is Mary Liz. So lately I've been talking to retired astronaut Nicole Stott about a subject near and dear to her. She says that she's always so grateful that someone insisted that she take her humanity with her on her human spaceflight. And for her, that meant painting in space, and I'm curious what this might mean for you all. Have you decided to bring something special in your personal effects, or have you thought about how you'll spend your personal time?
Good question.
Yes.
For me, yes, 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 we know and love Nicole. Unfortunately, I don't have the same talents as she has when it comes to art, so that is not something I will probably be doing very much of in space. I think a lot of my time will be similar to what it was before when I had free time, looking out the window and enjoying the perspectives of space, and then thinking of ways that we can communicate that to the rest of the world, because communicating what we're doing and our experiences up there is hugely important.
All right, let's go to Frida Juarez with El Universal again.
Yeah, I also
Got
wanted
him.
to ask, sorry, I don't know, but, sorry. So, could you explain me how different it was working, you all, except from Victor, have experience working at NASA, no? But how does the collaboration with the SpaceX made it different?
So I think you're asking how the experience has been working with SpaceX, different from maybe working at NASA?
Yes.
Yeah, you know, that team is really amazing, and I can't give them enough kudos. It has made me appreciate how hard they work and how talented their workforce really is. Every time we go there, I learn a ton, but I also have fun. We'll get back to our house in the evening and just be mentally exhausted, maybe physically exhausted, and then we'll sit around at dinner talking about how much we learned, but we'll all have smiles on our faces. And I think the NASA culture has been improved by working with SpaceX, and I think SpaceX's culture has been improved by working with NASA. They appreciate different things about us, having all of that experience Mike and Shannon talked about earlier, and we appreciate their talent and their operations tempo. They move pretty fast, and so they do things that seem to us to be pretty amazing, but they do that with a lot of talent and professionalism.
And I would add to that in some ways it's very interesting and similar to our international partnership when we first started. Our international partners all came with their own experiences and approaches and ways of doing business, and we've all come together sort of in the center of
5,000
having
points.
one
Let's
very
go.
functional group working together. And so now we're bringing SpaceX into the team, and we're learning from SpaceX, and SpaceX is learning from the partnership. So it's a very interesting process.
All right, let's go back to Celine Barber with Gannett Publications.
Great, thank you so much, Megan. I haven't heard as much about the scientific experiments that you might be maintaining or conducting while upon the ISS. Would any of you like to share what science experiments you're going to be working on?
Well, so I think a part of that is with the flexibility we've had to maintain for launch dates. It means that the experiments that are going to be up there while we're there could vary, and so we've had to train on a variety of them. And one that I'm really looking forward to is food physiology, because I love to eat, and it's going to allow me to eat more fruits and vegetables as they try to increase the amount of omega fatty acids and lycopene and flavonoids to see how it affects your gut health and your immune system and your overall nutrition. So I'm looking forward to food physiology.
All right, anyone else on science experiments?
I can maybe add some. Obviously, we have a variety of science experiments which didn't exist 10 years ago when Shannon and I flew. So right now we have a lot of new teams like biotechnology and gene technology, and also we are doing a lot of microsat deployment. We're using our Kibo airlock, which did not exist 10 years ago. So we have a lot of new ways to explore the science these days.
All right, thanks. Great question. Just a reminder, if you have a question on the phone, you can press *1 to ask your question or *2 to withdraw your question. All right, let's take a couple of more questions from social media. Margaret on Facebook wants to know about your patch. What are the symbols in the patch? What does it stand for?
So the symbols on the bottom of the patch on that border that are kind of the shadow symbols, they represent the previous U.S. launch vehicles, and so that's the Mercury, the Gemini, the Apollo, and then you'll see the shuttle symbol there, and of course that's then flowing into the Crew Dragon. And if you look above the head of the Dragon in the background, you'll see the outline of the International Space Station, which is our destination right now.
Cute.
All right, another question from the SpaceX Reddit group on Twitter. Can astronauts customize their suit and helmet colors? Soichi Noguchi had a cool black helmet in training.
Well, the short answer is we wish, but not actually. That's not one of the. Yeah, I actually like those black helmets. I put it on my Twitter, but that's not the official flight helmet. The SpaceX has a nice design scheme, and it's really actually nice white helmet. And I don't think we have the luxury of changing the spacesuit in any actually shuttle, Soyuz, and but the spacesuit actually looks really fantastic.
All right, let's go to Jeff on Facebook. Are there any fun Easter eggs on Crew Dragon that you know of, or fun features people might not know about?
We would love to know if there's some fun Easter eggs out there. I don't know. I'm not aware of any.
I might be aware of some, but I'm not going to share them right now.
Oh man, you're holding out on us.
I am.
All right. And for our final question for today, let's go to Mary on Twitter. What do you, as astronauts, consider a personal goal during the Crew 1 mission? Maybe each of you can give a brief answer here.
So, as a personal goal, I think this one is probably fairly obvious, but for all of us, it's to land safely and return to our families, and that's kind of first and foremost. I think one of my other goals is I'm very excited to fly with Victor on his first flight, and part of that goal then is looking forward to seeing what he does on his next flight.
I've listened to the advice of my colleagues and good friends, and I'm going to make a point to try and capture the moments, take a lot of pictures of the things that we do inside, not just our beautiful planet, but also of my crewmates as well, to try and really capture that experience, but also just to experience it itself.
Nope.
Victor's goal is very similar to my goal. We've worked very hard to get to this position. We know we've got a lot of hard work ahead of us on the space station, so we want to accomplish our work, but still have a lot of fun doing it. So if we can come back as a happy crew like we're going into space as, that's going to be a good thing.
That's a good goal.
All right.
I would say every day is a new day in space. Enjoy every moment. Return home with smile.
That's great. Thank you all so much for joining us today and for taking questions. We are so excited to see you launch on October 31st. You can watch these guys launch on NASA TV, online at nasa.gov/live, or on Facebook Live on the NASA Facebook page. You can also join Mike, Victor, and Shannon tomorrow at 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time on Instagram Live on the NASA Instagram page. And you can follow updates on social media by following NASA, the Space Station Commercial Crew, and also Victor, Mike, and Soichi on Twitter. Good luck, guys, and thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Peace. You boys are done here as well. So that's fine. Okay. Well, I think that's about it for me, because it is 4 a.m. I'm gonna go to sleep now, because I'm also out of water, and it's sleepy. So I'm gonna go to sleep. And anyway, that was interesting. I enjoyed staying up for it, but it wasn't a fist fight. Come on, come on. If it's not Joe on the ground doing push-ups to prove that he's more manly than Trump, oh man, I just come on. We want to see the fight, man. Anyway, that's gonna be it for me. I'll play more tomorrow or the next day or whenever I get back. Anyway, bye bye. Good night.